Welcome to the AEW Match Guide podcast, where we deep dive into the best matches in AEW history. Brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network and your host, Sam Brown. Hello and welcome to the AEW Match Guide podcast. I'm your host, Sam Brown. Thank you for joining me. Today, we continue the fourth season of the Match Guide, where we'll be looking beyond the ropes of Tony Khan's ring to the matches, wrestlers, promotions, and movements that influenced all elite wrestling. If you enjoy the show today, you can subscribe or rate it on your podcast app of choice, support the Social Suplex podcast financially through Red Circle, and make sure you check out all of the other great shows on the Social Suplex Podcast Network, where we cover all aspects of the world of wrestling. We've got One Nation Radio, Keeping It Strong Style, All Things Elite, Tunnel Talk, the Trish and Sarah Wrestling Podcast, Wrestle Art with Chris Things, Imp's AEW Adventure, and Joshying Around. And you can subscribe to our newsletter at socialsuplex.com/newsletter. Become part of our community by joining our Discord, where you can chat with the hosts of all our podcasts, as well as other wrestling fans from all around the world. Links for all of these things are in the podcast description. My guest for today, he's no stranger to these parts. He's a picker, he's a grinner, he's a lover, he's a sinner. He's loving on the run. It's Matt Mayer from Imp's AEW Adventure. And today, as AEW approaches All In 2026, sorry, I've stuffed myself up there, Imp. I went a bit too hard on your intro, mate. And today, as we approach All In 2026, we're looking back at the entirety of the original All In from 2018. Imp, welcome to the show.
You've not sang for me before.
That's not true. On your podcast, many years ago, I sung you Happy Birthday and played it on guitar.
Okay, I remember that.
I think it was the first time we ever podcast together, and it was your birthday, and I sung Happy Birthday to you. So there you go. I tripped myself up there. I always like giving you get the best intros, Imp. You get the best intros. You and Rich Latter get the best. I called him a shit stirrer once. You don't get that, but you get sung to.
I'm not stirring any shit. It was like social media for me, because I just don't engage at all at the moment. I'm on Blue Sky just retweeting resharing the social suplex stuff. That's basically my social media engagement at this point. But I really don't. My thing used to be like lukewarm, just not doing anything controversial. If I don't agree with anybody, just be like, the most I ever got was one time I was confused why people were making predictions for a WWE show that had like no build, no story, no da-da-da. And people were like, what do you mean you can't make predictions? Oh, it's what do you mean? You just choose which one you think is going to win. Yeah, based on what, dickhead? And after the show, I felt so vindicated because Becky Lynch put out basically a tweet just saying, yeah, we had nothing to work with. And I'm like, yeah, there you go. I was right.
She said. Well,
that's the most controversial I ever got. A really low bar.
I think for me, my worst day, it was a great day on social media. I did a Rumble thing, an AEW Rumble thing that just blew the hell up, and it ended up the top of the top of Reddit Squared Circle, and also the top of Reddit. I think it's called SC Jerk. It's like a bunch of weirdos who like.
Oh, okay, yeah.
You can imagine the kind of people that do it. Squared Circle Jerk, and I ended up the top of that as well. And that was that's probably the height of controversy that I've got myself into. Although, yeah, anyway, look, I like to think that my not being on social media is a sign of my maturity. That's the way that's what I tell myself, at least. But the truth is, I probably just get myself into enough trouble just posting on the Social Suplex Discord. So that's enough for me. Imp, we're laughing, we're wasting time, but we have a marathon to run. Normally, I would spend a lot of time asking about how you're going, what you've been doing with your life, the wrestling you've been watching, ask you why you picked this episode. But instead, today, I want you to close your eyes. At home, you can too. If you're driving, maybe don't. Maybe just listen. But you could still cast your mind back a little under 10 years. Imp, it's the 16th of May, 2017. The wrestling world in the West knows only one name, and that name is Vince McMahon. The pro wrestling territories that span the entirety of North America for the majority of the last century, they are a distant memory. Vince McMahon's sports entertainment's vision beat them out. It's 20 years since the Attitude Era, and the Monday Night Wars are long since over. They're losers absorbed into the world wrestling entertainment empire, yet wrestling cannot break free from their shadow. The constant return of stars of past generations, The Undertaker, Goldberg, Shane McMahon, Triple H, is leaving one of the most gifted generations of wrestlers that we've ever seen in status. Wrestlers like Dean Ambrose sit stuck in the mid-card purgatory, ambitious, driven, passionate, but unable to complete the push to the summit of the industry that they want to take. Some, like Cody Rhodes, the son of the legendary Dusty Rhodes, they've left the WWE completely, searching for greener pastures elsewhere. Vince World's champions of choice in the 16th of May 2017. The men that he has selected to represent his vision of wrestling that he sees are the part-timer Brock Lesnar, whose very act is one of someone who has complete disdain for pro wrestling, and Randy Orton, a wrestler we are told is physically the perfect specimen of a wrestler, but who hasn't had a match that would suggest that's true in about half a decade. In 4 days' time, he will face Jinder Mahal for the WWE Championship, a match that he would lose, gifting Mahal, a wrestler who hadn't won a one-on-one match in years, the same championship that was once held by Bruno Sammartino for 4,000 days. Vince McMahon's vision for sports entertainment and domination of the industry are beyond challenging. He is the only company to occupy mainstream TV. He is the only company to compete in stadiums, and his brand has been unchallenged long enough that to the general public, the idea of pro wrestling is completely synonymous with WWE. There is no pro wrestling. There is Vince McMahon's WWE. For fans of professional wrestling, it's a grim world. But it's not one completely without hope. In the East, New Japan Pro Wrestling has been rebuilt from the ashes of the 2000s into a purist's heaven. In the UK and Europe, wrestling shows are kind of the new punk rock. Even in North America, underneath the WWE's hegemonic dominance, there's a burgeoning indie scene with a fan base dedicated enough to support the scene of talented wrestlers in concert halls, high school gymnasiums, and pack Legion halls around the country. Into that world, a man with a pretty unlikely moniker would post a question. On the 16th of May, 2017, the day we're thinking of, at the WWE guy _ would ask wrestling historian and journalist Dave Meltzer, hey, at Dave Meltzer, WWON, do you think ROH can ever sell out an arena of 10K plus fans? Something like Madison Square Garden? Which Dave would reply, not anytime soon. That would then be followed up with Cody Rhodes, quote tweeting Meltzer, I'll take that bet, Dave. I've already given them their biggest buy rate. Put the Bucks and I on that card and 3 months to promote. Imp. It's the 16th of May 2017 and the world of pro wrestling is about to change. Welcome to the AEW Match Guide retrospective look at All In 2018.
Oh man, what an exciting time this was to be a professional wrestling fan. I think, was this the same year that you started watching New Japan?
Yes.
Yes.
I just started watching New Japan. I just started writing about wrestling, actually. And I kind of wanted to start about talking about the landscape, because I think it's important. It's impossible to understand the importance of All In without understanding the place and time of it. And, 8 years later, it's kind of hard to remember what was actually going on at that time, because we've come so used to the current status quo. But looking back at the status quo, it's such an interesting time, because you've got such dominance at the top of the industry, but then there's so many interesting other things happening on the side, just bubbling away.
Because another one that feeds into what we're going to be talking about is Lucha Underground. It's another massively different alternative to anything else that was out there wrestling wise. And in this period, WWE, it's difficult to talk about now if you've only like got into wrestling in the last like 5 years or whatever, or even more recent than that. To just explain that WWE had such a stranglehold where they were synonymous with it. You say wrestling, there's like they don't say like WWE, they go WWE because there is no alternative. They are wrestling as far as the mainstream media goes. There is no second company or whatever. It doesn't matter that Tony Khan's featured on like the best sports businessman list or whatever because normal people aren't reading those. So it's a completely different world. And I was going to say, people have grown incredibly bored at times with WWE. Like they'd had their ebbs and flows. Like into the like mid noughties was a proper ebb. John Cena then picks up a specific kind of audience, and they start really getting behind the guy. But then that means the people who are a bit more like stronger, like as we're saying, like pure wrestling fans, they feel a bit left behind by that era. And they start to drift away. And in that same period, because in that same period, TNA maybe would spotlight a few people, but it was those who would slowly drift over to Ring of Honor. That suddenly that becomes their little like hidey hole of us watching pure wrestling or whatever. And in that same time period is when Hiroshi Tanahashi is kind of fixing New Japan with what he's doing. It's such an exciting time. Talent would get raided, things would change. CM Punk would then absolutely explode in WWE. Daniel Bryan Danielson would explode in WWE. But overall, the feeling of the product was very stale, just with the odd explosion of interest. It wasn't like we got with the Bloodline with Roman Reigns, where it's like, and the whole Cody story recently, where that was like a prolonged part of engagement. They got to a point where it felt like everybody on their roster was over, kind of how AEW feels now. WWE had that like a couple of years ago. But there's the odd explosion, like I was saying with Daniel Bryan and CM Punk. But overall, I don't think the positive feeling towards WWE really came back until Triple H took over. And it was such a long period as well. I think, to be fair as well, depends if you were a child or not. Because if you were a kid, I bet you were really engaged with the John Cena run. So it's just an interesting landscape where you got so many people kind of disinterested, but there is no other wrestling. TNA's there, but WWE is wrestling.
Yeah, like the whole of the industry circles around WWE. And to a large degree, it still does a lot today. But even more so, like every single wrestler, just about nearly is wanting to get to the, because the only place they can make enough money. Like these are people who have a short career, so they have to maximize their earning potential. And in this era, in 2019, there are a few people on the indies who make good money. Like the Young Bucks say they made good money. Someone like Colt Cabana managed to like kind of create this cottage industry, but it wasn't something that could sustain too many people. And it wasn't something that you were going to get, seriously well off for, or at least well off enough that you could support yourself for the rest of your life. So in the entire industry almost in the West is aiming to get to WWE. And for me, like, in terms of where Vince McMahon's head was at as the booker, he was so obsessed with the past. And so he was just completely not trusting of the current generation that was coming through. And for me, as I was actually really engaged with certain elements of the product, even 2016, 2017, 2018. There was some parts of the WWE product that I really connected with and engaged with. But the problem was it was always, you would be seeing something and you'd see how good you thought it could be, but then you would have something like Jinder Mahal happen, or Brock Lesnar would be, reigning over the top of it. And it's not that Brock isn't a great wrestler. It's just the way that they used him was so stifling to guys like Dean Ambrose, who I love, guys like even Seth Rollins. I was really into Seth Rollins. And even like the way they were pushing Roman Reigns was so infuriating because you could see the potential. You could see the potential greatness there, but at the same time, they just kept getting it so wrong. And it was so alienating and so frustrating as a fan to be like, I know what I want. And you could see, like you could hear in the crowds, people trying to tell the booker what they want. And he wasn't listening. He didn't want to. He often acted in spite of what they wanted, what was being said. Like, it was like, no, I'm going to give you my vision I want Jinder Mahal as my champion. You know, we've got AJ on SmackDown in 2018. We've got AJ Styles. We've got Dean Ambrose at the start of the year. We've got, you know, even Bray Wyatt. You know, that was, you know, he'd already had a couple of different repackages at that point, but he was there. And at times, like, Bray Wyatt was a champion going into Mania in 2017 and then got beaten by Randy Orton. You know, AJ Styles was the champion at the start of the year before John Cena beat him. Like, you would see these flashes of like, oh, this could, and no, Vince McMahon, it was like he wanted to clamp down on that possibility. And you had wrestlers as there as well. Like, you know, I haven't mentioned Kevin Owens yet. I haven't mentioned Sami Zayn, Shinsuke Nakamura. You know, there was lots of exciting prospects coming into the WWE, but it's just every time they would get you'd get a glimpse of light, it would get shut down, or something dumb would happen that would frustrate you. Yeah, it was like the hope was what killed you in some ways, because, you know, a lot of people just walked away. Like, their ratings kept going down. Like, every single week, the ratings would be going down for the WWE, and their attendance was bad. They would have like a lot of those tarped off arenas for shows, and you'd see the pictures of it, and it'd be tarped off arenas and stuff. And they were still doing well with like your WrestleManias and that sort of thing. It was still affordable to go and stuff. So people, you know, they were doing pretty well with stadiums, but it was, as a fan, so infuriating at times with how it was. And then, of course, like, you know, as you were saying, like, a lot of people started looking elsewhere. And I remember when I first started watching wrestling outside of the WWE, which was at Kenny Omega and Kazuchika Okada, and I started looking around the landscape, and it was like, the way I was trying to describe it, it's like I'd walked out of a shopping mall where everything is like so plastic. You've got those horrible fluorescent lights. The music is unbearable, but it's also like just so commercial. And there's every single shopping mall you go to is exactly the same. So I'm walking out of one of those, and you look outside, and suddenly there's this landscape, and you've got a forest, you've got a beach, and it's like there's all different colors, there's all different things that you can go and explore. And that's kind of what, like, it was like when you looked outside of the WWE, but nothing there was big enough to compete with the WWE. WWE like stood as this monolith that everything sort of had to bow to and grow around.
Like, you hit on a pretty important sentiment, which is gonna kind of like build up to as we go through the build to All In. But the fact that when you were watching WWE, it at times felt like WWE versus the fans. Like, it's odd to explain now because it doesn't exist in any form whatsoever. We might be getting there. Triple H has been making those comments.
He's trying. He's getting there.
He's trying. You're getting there. but at the time in WWE, you would have. It's not like now where they insert audio in a crap way. They would, at the time, Roman Reigns would come out. It would be huge boos, and they just turn the sound down, so there's no atmosphere. So it was, or they try and find a pocket. So it goes from really loud. It's like boo. It's like, oh, you want quiet, do you? For your wrestling show? Or like when Dolph Ziggler one time got a nickname now. He got a huge reaction when he came out of SmackDown one time, and they cut it out because it's like, well, he's not the guy we're trying to get over. So it's just like, it's really weird times where, you know, back at the time, to be fair, people were calling it out for being weird. Like, it wasn't just accepted or anything. As we're talking about, people were stopping watching. They were looking for wrestling out there. These weren't people. The people who were tuning out now, they weren't people that got lost because, like, either John Cena wasn't there as regularly, or whether the Attitude Era was definitely gone and they're just falling off. But this is well past any of that stuff. This is big. These people are wrestling fans, and they're now losing hardcore wrestling fans, as we were just talking about, without there being a huge, massive, definitive alternative. And these are wrestling fans they're losing now. And you watch a WWE show in that period, and they are turning against the shows. The Royal Rumbles of 2014, 2015, booed out of the arenas. Like, it's crazy to think that such a match like the Royal Rumble, which is so beloved by the fans, got booed out of the arena 2 years in a row. Like, it's they were so against what the fans were saying that they wanted. And a lot of those fans, the reason that WWE is the kind of crowds it does now is not just because of the ticket prices. So it's just rich dickheads or super fans who shouldn't be paying that amount of money, and the company should be more responsible looking after their fans, but they're not. That's a whole different conversation, which can include FIFA as well. But the whole thing with just turning those fans away, like it's so strange to be doing that, to be going against what they are telling you want. It's just and for me that's a really important sentiment. At the time, you'd see quotes so often of people referencing Vince doing the "you don't like what you think you like what I tell you like," which screams person who thinks he's smart isn't actually as smart as he thinks he is. Because that's television, that's writing. That's not, you're not saying anything profound. You think it's profound, but you can't be as smart as you think you are, because it's not. And the other one was Triple H saying, "Oh, I'm going to leave and stop watching with my friend Mark." Yeah, people did. People were doing that. The fans were turning on the product, and they would do weird things like saying that they weren't. They were saying that we've not delivered the product we should, and then put all the blame on the Baron Corbin character. Like it was, and then didn't improve anything. They just did a quick plaster.
Well, you think about how the fans like took a torch to the main events of Mania in 2017 and 2018. Like just booed it relentlessly for the main event of WrestleMania, because they were just so against what was going on the screen. And and I saw my writing at the time, because if not that you can really go back, you've got to go through the Internet Archives to find my writing now, because it all got deleted off the site. But if you were able to go back, if you did go back and look at it, a lot of it is like trying to advocate for the current generation, like guys like Ambrose, as I said, guys like Ambrose primarily, but also like Rollins, also the better booking of Reigns, AJ Styles, and being like, these, like, get behind these guys. These are the guys that people are excited about. Finn Balor, Kevin Owens, and people are excited to see, like, get behind these guys. But they were just constantly booked in spite of it. And then let's sort of move away from WWE, because I think we've set the scene about how.
I feel like we've successfully got across the emotions.
Yeah, how negative it was. But then I think a lot of people, it's like, well, let's go somewhere where they are doing something that we want to see. Like, they are, the people that they're pushing are the people that we want to see pushed. And that's what you get when you sort of dip your toe out of WWE. You go and you see in New Japan, or specifically, let's talk about the Elite. Like, it's such a huge time for them. Kenny Omega, he's just moved up to the heavyweight division of New Japan in 2016. He wins the G1 that year. And then at the start of 2017, which is the year like all of this stuff started to bubble along and percolate and happen, he main events Wrestle Kingdom with Okada in that match that broke the scale. And I remember being on Reddit Squared Circle when that thing happened, and it was just dominated by gifs of Kenny Omega and the moves that these guys were doing in that match, that Wrestle Kingdom match. And that was the buzz of the wrestling industry. You know, like Stone Cold had a podcast. He reviewed it, said it was amazing. Mick Foley also had a podcast. He said the same thing. You know, that was the talk of the wrestling industry at the start of 2017, because it just felt so groundbreaking. And you look at also like the Young Bucks, for example, you know, at Supercard of Honor, they sold out the building that they were in with the Bucks and the Hardys. It was only 3,500 tickets, but they sold it out easily. They packed the place. And that's specifically the thing that Cody cited. He said he thinks that they could do more because they did that, but the promotion could have done. He reckons that he was like, the promotion could have done more. If they could sell that easily, then the promotion could have done more. Like, this is a company that is, this is a group of wrestlers that is surging, and that as the Young Bucks put in their book, they said, we were feeling invincible at this time.
It's one of those where, if you were watching it in New Japan quite religiously, like I think I was at the time, it feels like it's a very natural thing to be doing. Like, I was watching the Nightmare Family series, or I think it's just called All Us, and it's basically the Young Bucks and Cody talking about the build up to the show, and just some of the things in it where they were just like, they were so, people would tell them all the time after they decided to do All In that they shouldn't be worried at all, because they've done all of that momentum was there for this. There is no way it doesn't do as well. Obviously, it's sold out in like 29 minutes. And That's over. They were like, "Oh, can we even sell out a 10,000 building?" And they do it in 29 minutes. And arguably, that momentum stays to Wembley, UK. Like that kind of like bigger and bigger, selling out more and more and more, even through into AEW. That momentum is still there, like 4 years later, whenever we did Wembley. But yeah, it's one of those. It's that ride of momentum because they became the talk of the wrestling world, which is really important to pair with the animosity between WWE and its fans, or its most hardcore fans. They're turning away their paying customer at this point. Suddenly, at the same time, that Kenny Omega Kazuchika Okada match happens, and it's this huge beacon. And online, everybody is talking about it. And suddenly, they're like, "Oh, there is somewhere catering to us." And stateside, that's where Ring of Honor comes in, because they are sort of like, "Oh, you want to see these talents? Well, the American talents are on these Ring of Honor shows all the time, or you can go to PWG, or the big thing with the Bucks is they would work every single show, as many shows as they could, and they would go 100% for every show that they did. And that work ethic is arguably what helped make them such huge stars. And by their own admission, what helped them get on with Cody, who also had a crazy work ethic and was like very ambitious with what he was trying to do.
And I think they also had an attitude that was like, we want to subvert what came before, like the super kick party, the killing the business. They wholeheartedly embrace that attitude. And where in the WWE, those, as I said, those pillars of the industry, like your Undertakers, your NWOs, they're all like held in such honor, the DXs, and the Young Bucks are like, no, middle fingers to that. We're gonna do our own thing, and we're gonna we're gonna blaze our own trail. Middle fingers to you guys. We're better than that. We've evolved, and their matches felt like a party. The way that that's where they got the thing super kick party from. They were like, we're going to have a party. It's going to be like, everyone's going to be having fun. Everyone's going to be rocking and rolling. And we're going to be at the center of it, conducting it. And, you mentioned, of course, I mentioned that Ring of Honor thing earlier in this season of the podcast. I looked at the New Japan, the first show they did in the stateside. They sold 2,300 tickets, and it sold out it only took an hour or so to sell out. Like there was like such an immediate hunger for these when these acts came over, like your Kenny Omegas and your Kazuchika Okadas. When they came over, there was like so much hunger to go and see them amongst the hardcore fan base, and also, as you said, Ring of Honor, and then crucially as well, you had Being the Elite on YouTube, and it's like it's a perfect time in social media when I would say it was a lot less toxic than what it is now. And there was the ability for movements to sort of come out of social media a lot more, I feel like, than what there is now. For whatever reason, the way that the algorithm works now doesn't sort of do that. But that having that YouTube presence really allowed people to gravitate towards the Young Bucks and build that parasocial relationship with them. And they were so open as well. Like if you could watch them on YouTube, and then they did they did so many meet and greets, and they would be selling merch. They would be at the ring. They would be shaking hands, and people could really feel like they were, they were getting to know these people, and they were almost riding with them and part of the movement because of how it was all done, through social media, on YouTube, with meet and greets, and the way they spoke about things, with that the idea of it being a super kick party. They're like, we need the crowd to be in on it, and then they do these post show promos where they would, be joking back and forth with the crowd. It felt so different from where in WWE, and it's. I'm not trying to give WWE a kicking too much. Well, I absolutely am, because the point is you have to understand what was happening to see why. Even though there was this giant monopoly that controlled the industry completely, why this upstart was able to flourish. And it's because they were just doing everything the opposite of what the WWE was doing. And it was at the perfect time to attract fans across.
Because part of their mission statement, the whole change the world thing that they have on the back of their jackets and everything, at the time as well, when you would talk about how wrestling stories are written or how they're portrayed or how you get the information across to the viewer, how WWE did it was and to be fair, AEW fell victim to this at one point. How WWE do it was seen as that's the way you do it. And a lot of this kind of build as well, the way that BTE works as well was, well, why does it have to be like that? Why can't we tell stories in a different way? Why can't we try and do more adult themes? And like a great example in AEW was Hangman Page's arc, the anxious millennial cowboy with his drinking problem. Like, that is such a grown-up story that WWE could never portray. Stuff like that. And to be able to, especially with BTE, you've got such emotional beats as well. The way they told the whole Kota Ibushi Kenny Omega story, the whole Bullet Club is fine. Everything feels way more adult. And like what I mean is, like in WWE, even if it was a story that you liked, commentary would be beating it over your head what the story is. They would show replays about 4 or 5 times per show. Like, they made sure that even the lowest intellectual was able to follow this, which means your product feels dumb. WWE was dumb. And to be fair, it kind of still is, but nowhere near as bad as it was in this period we're talking about. It felt so dumb. Suddenly you go and watch Being the Elite stuff they're doing. I'm not going to say it's the smartest thing in the world. It's incredibly stupid. We'll get into it. But it just feels like everything. It's the way they're telling their stories as well is so completely different. And it's almost like the proof of concept before when you get to AEW. The way that Being the Elite would tell their longer, more serious stories feels very much like the DNA when we get to how Tony Khan's been writing stuff as well. Like, it really is, this is how we want to do it. How do you guys feel about it? And then All In, this like the immediate test of, oh God, people really like this.
Yeah, let's talk about All In specifically. Let's kind of we started off very broad. Let's kind of keep focusing in. Let's talk about All In specifically. So, of course, there was that tweet that it's so funny. It's so funny to me that the guy who like publicly kicked all this off is the WWE guy _. Like, that will remain so forever hilarious to me. There is that tweet where he, asked Dave Meltzer that, and Dave said not anytime soon, and then Cody Rhodes famously took up the challenge. Now, both the Bucks and Cody Rhodes, and maybe they're just wrestlers lying to us, who knows? But they say that they had already started discussing it at that point. That Cody Rhodes had gone to the Young Bucks and said, "You can do 10,000." Cody apparently was obsessed with that number, 10,000 people, and he was very much driven to hit that number specifically. And so through 2017, they started talking about it, discussing it, reaching out to arenas and things like that. Originally, apparently, they wanted to do it in LA, and which made sense because that's the Bucks' home ground. That's where they're from. They built like a lot of cachet out there in PWG. There's lots of people. It's a common. There's lots of flights to LA, so it would have been a good option. It turned out that the arena they were looking at there was already booked up, and so instead they chose Chicago. They said it was a great market for them. It's in the middle of the country, so they felt like it was even better for transport, people wanting to fly there, and it was a good wrestling market. And so they chose the Sears Centre in Chicago, or Hoffman Estates, Chicago, just outside of Chicago, apparently. And the news came out the start of 2018 that they were going to do this show. And then they announced it in April, May, that's when they were going to be doing it in Chicago. And it was a really canny marketing campaign for it. I think calling it All In, it's a really good name for a show like this, because there's, of course, the bet that Cody Rhodes had. There's going all in, like we're going for broke with this. We're throwing everything out there because, this could have been a complete disappointment. They didn't feel like it would be. As I said, like in their book, they specifically say, like, we felt invincible. And even when they had doubts, people would be like, no, this is going to happen. This is going to happen. But, they really are putting themselves out there. If this had not gone well, then it doesn't look good for them. Like if they had, sold 5,000 tickets, that would have been a success, but it wouldn't have been the game changing kind of movement affirming moment that getting that 10,000 number, I think, would have been. Because, TNA had at times touched around that. ROH, as I said, they got that 3,500 number that kind of is what gave Cody the confidence. But 10,000, that feels like a big number. That's 5 digits. Like, that feels huge. That's a full arena. At the time, a lot of the time SmackDown and Raw weren't doing 10,000 seats. I can tell you that. Yeah, and they first approached New Japan to get buy-in. They went to Rocky to do that. And then they went to ROH heads and approached them to discuss it with them. Now, it really is important we can't understate the role that ROH played, because technically Cody and the Bucks were contracted for exclusively in America to wrestle for ROH. I think the Bucks had a rider out of that for doing PWG, but apart from that, it was going to be ROH. So ROH really, they could have said no and put the kibosh on it straight away, but they said no, we want to help. And that to me is such a big thing, because these guys are they're running their own show. It's kind of competition, right? To ROH, what they're doing. They're not doing it, they're doing it in collaboration, but it's kind of like the, one hand out to handshake, the other hand behind with a knife. But like ROH volunteered to help with things like production and help with setup and those sorts of things, which are the logistics we don't think about. Like the Bucks and Cody and all that, they had a fan movement who were keen to buy tickets and everything, but they don't have a logistics setup to set up a 10,000 seat arena. They don't have, the production crew and staff to film, shoot, edit, and do all the things that go into light, do sound for a wrestling show. So having that assistance from ROH was such a huge help.
Yeah, it was because they've been helping New Japan as well in this time period. So it almost was like joint shows in a way already between New Japan and Ring of Honor. So when it turns into the Elite with Ring of Honor, like they've all worked together a lot. They would have met a lot of these crews whilst doing the Ring of Honor or New Japan shows. It's like, as we say, like lots of little costs which all build up. I know on the Nightmare Family thing, they were saying that they will be lucky to break even because there's like lots of little costs they hadn't considered. I think he said, I think Matt Jackson was saying that it hit him when it was like, oh yeah, we'll have Rick Knox who's currently in AWF. We'll have him do one of our referee things. And then they were like, oh, that's the cost of a flight. That's the cost of an appearance. That's a hotel cost. Just like it all balloons up, and you have to do that for all of the crew, never mind the people on the show. And they wanted to give wrestlers like a pretty good rate. They were saying there was one younger wrestler they booked, and they were like, and the wrestler gave them their rate, and Cody was like, we're going to pay you better than that. So it's just like they wanted to make sure everybody was cared for, which meant that their personal takeaway wasn't maybe as grand. But I don't know what it was like after pay-per-view sales, because I didn't look up those numbers. But I think they might have been all right once that had all gone through. But yeah, it's that vibe as well. It's not quite like All In is today. I mean, really happy that we have an All in some way. I mean, that's actually another important point. When AEW was like in the first years of the company, they weren't able to show any footage from the first All In, which feels wild, but that's because Ring of Honor, they owned the rights to it. And so through what we were just talking about with the deal, that meant that Ring of Honor, it was technically a Ring of Honor show, and they owned the rights to the show, meaning that AEW couldn't use any of the footage in it in the birth of their company, which was birthed because of that show. So it did have ripple effects. And obviously the biggest ripple effect being that now All Elite Wrestling owns Ring of Honor. So it's kind of like it's all very important history that is still ongoing.
It's worth mentioning. I think I kind of said it there, but I think they had a really canny marketing campaign for this. Calling it All In for one. Not only was that a great title in terms of what it represented, but it was also a great line for the wrestlers to be able to say, I'm all in. Like it just rolls off the tongue so well. It was a great like social media slogan they could put up. I think announcing their goal of the 10,000 seats was also genius because it made the crowd feel like they were part of trying to prove something. Yes. And, like this is a group of fans who, as we said, have been like turned away from the biggest wrestling promotion, with the biggest wrestling promotion telling them, we know what wrestling is, you don't. We know what popular is, what's going to be popular, you don't. And I will decide what popular is, not you. And it really just helps weaponize that feeling to be like, you're part of the movement that is giving that the middle finger. because we're trying to do this really wholly ambitious thing that no one thinks we can do. And that, even the WWE is struggling to do outside of pay-per-views. You can be part of that. You can be all in too. It's such a great catchphrase, and credit should be given to Teal Rhodes, which is Cody Rhodes' sister, who came up with that title, All In. And I also thought it was interesting, just some more reflections from the book that I read, the Young Bucks book. And this was written before 2021. I should put it out there. Matt suggested getting Sam Punk for Chicago, but apparently Cody said they didn't need him and it was their movement and they would sell out the place on their own back. And I think that is actually, it's just like a huge turning point, because it one gave them the ownership over it. It couldn't be like, well, they sold that out because CM Punk returned. That's the only reason they're able to get that 10,000 seats, is because they had the return of Punk. Of course, he's a huge star from the WWE. That's what they needed. They didn't. It ended up being their movement, which is fantastic for them, but I think also probably like set some landmines that would then eventually explode down the line. And as I said, this book was written before 2021, so it was before Punk even came to the AEW, and everything went down with him in that. So it was written and released before then, so it wasn't influenced by subsequent things that would happen later. But it was interesting thinking through the implications of that, and like how the ownership of the movement and that became like something that was sort of weaponized eventually, and Punk not being part of the original movement probably had an effect on that, and it was ultimately something they thought about and decided to reject because they wanted it to be for them. And I think, look, honestly, I think that is for the best, because it was them. It was off the move. It was not, and it wasn't just them. It was largely them, but it was just generally the lots of different things that were happening in indie wrestling generally and American wrestling generally. Of course, I said, like, you had the support of New Japan. They're able to have Kenny Omega. They're able to have Kazuchika Okada, which is a huge get. It's the biggest star in Japan. He was able to wrestle on the card. But they also had like TNA sent people, just people from the indies. It said I was looking at something else in my research for this, and there were people who were offering to do it for free. Like wrestlers like Christopher Danielson apparently offered to do it for free, and they're like, no, we're going to pay you. But they just wanted to be part of what was happening because it felt so historic and it felt like it was so important, and they just wanted to be part of it.
It's like, I guess if you want a modern day equivalent, it's like if you're watching WWE and you watch Chad Gable currently trying to get a clap going to his shit AI theme, then you watch this week's Dynamite show and you watch Mystico's entrance and you watch all of the Spanish people singing that song and they let it play full 2 choruses and it's beautiful, it's amazing. Just the difference in feeling of a clap to a shit AI theme and then a pure emotional moment belting out a song. That's kind of the feeling they were going for. One is just corporate and just bland and bleh, whilst the other one is genuine emotion. And I mean, obviously, when we finally talk about All In, we'll have all that stuff. But that was bubbling, that wanting to show emotion. I mean, I think that's one big thing as well. They were desperate to show that emotion, but mainstream wrestling wasn't giving it them, and they were kind of secluded to this area. And suddenly they're like, let's celebrate wrestling, because that was one of the other things they were talking about, Matt, Nick, and Cody, that they didn't want to be something that was like either celebrating the past or using the past really strongly, which is really important for why, like earlier when you mentioned that WWE were at the time was so reliant on their past stars. They were like, we want to showcase the now and the future, because obviously you got like that main event where it's the elite, the Golden Elite of Kota Ibushi and the Young Bucks, but they've got Rey Mysterio, but then also Bandido, who I had no memory that Bandido was on this show. It was like, oh wow, okay. But then also, like the very first match on the show is a 22-year-old Maxwell Jacob Friedman. Like the future is there, like a 25-year-old, I think, Hangman Page as well.
Yep.
Cody say in his videos, Cody was saying that he truly believed that Hangman Page would be the kind of star future promotions would build their promotion around. And like, well, how correct was that? Like, he wasn't right on everything. Like, obviously, like Flip Gordon.
We'll talk about him later.
But it's gonna have. Yeah, I was gonna say, because at one point when we were doing a research for this, Sam was like, how are we going to talk about BTE? There's so many bits, but it's so important to all it.
It's such a silly show sometimes. So let's move on. Let's talk about the build itself, because it was like deep and sprawling and extended across like 3 or 4 different YouTube channels, and like that's just talking about the main players. I'm sure like there's people who are in the battle royale at the start making vlogs and stuff that I don't know. They've got vlogs that I don't know exist, but you've got BTE, which is sort of the center point of everything. You've got the Nightmare Family, which is Cody Rhodes' channel, obviously. Then you've got the 10 Pounds of Gold series, which is running on the NWA's channel to build up specifically for the NWA title match. And then it's also dominating like ROH TV as well, the build up to it, which is kind of crazy to think about, that like they're running shows that are sort of centered around, because their biggest stars, the Elite, I guess, like, and the Elite are like, this is our big thing. They're running shows that are centered around All In as well. And like, I feel like the main story, if I was thinking, what's the main story of All In? And I think the main story is, we are doing this. Will we pull it off? That's like the main story, right? That's like the thing that everyone wants to know the answer to. That's like, there's a wrestling show going on. We're doing this, 10,000 seats. Will we pull it off? I forgot to mention, we didn't mention the sellout. We didn't mention they sold out within half an hour, which probably bears me, like, it was phenomenal success, obviously. Everyone who went all in, and the marketing campaign and everything, when they launched, they sold it out within half an hour, surpassing, even their wildest expectations for what they were doing. I think they said in the vlogs beforehand, they said they would be lucky to get 6,000. They were like aiming for about 6,000 or so on the first day, and they sold it out within half an hour. It was phenomenal success. 11,263 attendance. So the tickets were beyond that 10,000. But like, the main story was like, we're doing this thing. What will it look like? Will we pull it off? And then, of course, you've got like the different storylines that sort of bubble on underneath it. Let's start off with probably one of the silliest ones of it, Hangman Page versus Joey Janela, where Hangman Page kills Dick Wrestler Joey Ryan. And those out there's going to be some people that we mentioned that don't Google them. This was the high point of their career, and they've, in some instances, such as Joey Ryan, been completely edited out of existing on the broadcast that you'll find now.
Quick way to explain it is,
he got jealous of Joey Ryan's having a bigger penis than him, and so he killed him. And then got paranoid because he'd killed someone, and his shoes were talking to him, so he stopped wearing cowboy boots. It was a very silly show sometimes, but he took it 100% seriously because he's Hangman Adam Page. He takes everything 100% seriously. And then somehow because Joey Janela's name is Joey Janela and Joey Ryan's name is Joey Ryan, so they're both called Joey. Hangman ends up in a feud with Joey Janela to face him.
That's literally it. That is literally it.
In a no DQ match. But Hangman is progressively getting more and more paranoid, and eventually admits to killing a man, to killing Joey Ryan. And then throughout the broadcast, a story takes place after this Hangman and Joey match. So very silly, but watching it back, I was like, man, Hangman has always committed to the bit. Fully 100%. He's always given his whole heart to anything, no matter what.
I guess to anybody who, again, a newer fan who maybe doesn't know, wrestling had its own Me Too called Speaking Out. And so we can kind of just like shorthand, just go, say a name, and then we just go, Speaking Out. They were included
Joey
in that.
Ryan. We probably should have seen that one coming. I mean, like, Jesus.
Oh yeah, like Jesus. Like some of the stuff on this show. So, actually, I'll leave one.
Don't go into the show itself yet. We'll talk about the show later.
So the bit that made me laugh the most, in terms of committing to the bit, is when Hangman starts talking to his shoes, and they go to the effort of having a shot of the shoes with a mouth at the toes, speaking. And it's just like, it's full commitment to such a stupid bit. Like, it's so silly. And they build up an entire murder mystery around it as well, incorporating their celebrity. In terms of all of the different stories they could have used for their celebrity, who's on a massive hit TV show, like a huge get for the time period. and they incorporate him into this storyline. Of all the ones they could have done, this is the one they put him in. Amazing, hilarious.
Yeah.
It's
Well, look,
so stupid.
Let's segue then into the Stephen Amell thing, because he gets roped in because he originally gets Stephen Amell, who was an actor that was on the show Arrow, playing Green Arrow, I believe, something along those lines. Yep, I'm correct. Good. I did my research and got it right. He is initially framed because he kind of looks like Hangman Page as the person who killed famous dick wrestler Joey Ryan. And turns out he isn't. And it was Christopher Daniels who like made the call to try and frame Stephen Amell, because Stephen Amell put him through a table at an ROH show. And so Christopher Daniels and Stephen Amell get into a feud. And all I wanted to say was like, these two actually like do some really good promos in the build up to it. Like Stephen Amell really commits to this and does like a full on wrestling promo, like wrestling promo to the camera down the lens. And then Christopher Daniels the week after, like shoots back at him with another zinger. And then they have a face to face as well. For what is essentially like a celebrity versus veteran match, and they picked Christopher Daniels very well to be the one to sort of guide Stephen Amell through a match. The build up to this was very good. Like Stephen Amell obviously knows wrestling and enjoys it.
Well, also, it was a really nice reminder because, of course, unfortunately, SCU didn't really work on AEW. They never really got over as they did, and then they tried the single stuff. It didn't really go anywhere. Kazarian leaves. Scorpio Sky's kind of just existing in weird stables. So it never really took off like it didn't. But it's really nice to get that reminder that in this period, there was a reason they were over. If you watch BTE and you walk away without just going, SCU, it's so good. And the lines that Kazarian comes out with, some of them, like when they're the other part as well is the whole gimmick about this is the worst town I've ever been in, which just didn't work when they were baby faces because it's such a dickhead thing to say. But they, again, in terms of commitment, it feels like that's like a key word for BTE. The commitment to this bit where they would travel the world because they're pro wrestlers and they would make sure to go to like a famous monument or whatever in whatever city they were in and then slag off whatever place they were in.
All everywhere,
from like the Alamo to Edinburgh Castle, all of this stuff. And the promo Kazarian cuts on Scotland. It's so funny. Where it's like the best thing this country has ever done is when Mel Gibson cut that promo on a horse and they went over all those jobbers. It's like that's such an amazing description of Braveheart. Oh, it's the SEU bits were always so funny. They got me every single time. And yeah, generally Kazarian, I forgot how funny he was. These bits are so good. But that for me, that helps explain just like why SEU were so over, why SEU then become the first tag team champions in AEW. Like they are important to AEW's history at the end of it. Christopher Daniels is still there as like a backstage role, so he becomes a key figure. But here, his work with Stephen Amell throughout the build, when we get to the show itself, like it's so well done, and it's good. It's good to see that he was still like so relevant because I think at this time he's dancing about the Ring of Honor World Championship as well, like having matches with Cody.
Yeah,
I think.
Yep.
Yeah, so he was still like a key figure in the wrestling world, but he was like that veteran who was towards the end of his career, getting this last like spark of life. The last time I was here, we were talking about Christopher Daniels because it was in the triple threat with AJ and Samoa Joe. But it was a SEU. I forgot how entertaining they were.
Well, and that's the sort of the build up to this match is like, will Daniels, like Amell goes, sure, you're the vet, Daniels, but on the big stage, will you shrink? Like, you don't know that. I'm an actor. I'm from Hollywood. Like, I know that I'm going to be able to rise to meet this stage. Will you? And then Daniels has a great promo himself talking about, how hard he's worked through his career and how even when he went into Amell's Mel's industry, he started from the bottom and he worked his way, and how that's going to mean that he knows that he's confident that when the time comes, he will have the guts and he will have the foundation that Amell doesn't. And it was quite a big get that they managed to get a celebrity for this as well. Like it really is like it's not only wrestling. It's like, oh, okay, they've got personalities around it as well. It's not just wrestling. Let's keep going. We talked about people who were Me Too'd out of the industry or speaking out of the industry. And we can't talk about this without talking about Marty Scurll and his match with Kazuchika Okada. You know, going back and looking at BTE, Marty Scurll was such a huge part of the chemistry of BTE. It's like, it's so bittersweet to go back and watch it and remember, you know, how good it was. But knowing that, you know, he would be one of the people that never made it, but also like, oh, what's going on behind the scenes with this guy, you know, he's not the likable person that you think he is necessarily in this. But, you know, in the build, once again, it's not dissimilar from the Daniels and Mel thing in that you've got Marty Scurll, who's, you know, lovable, but ultimately he's someone who's been booked in New Japan as a junior. He's only recently moved up to heavyweight in ROH, going against Kazuchika Okada, the Rainmaker, just off the end of like his massive run as the IWGP champion, you know, arguably the greatest wrestler in the world at the time. And so the build-up is like Marty Scurll going to his friends, do you think I could beat him? And they're all telling him he's completely fucked. So the Young Bucks, Nick Aldis, Zack Sabre Jr., even Jack Swagger, they're all telling him, oh, you go up against Okada, you've got no chance.
I guess because it's like, they're like Mick Foley, like Rey Mysterio, like all these legends also telling him, oh no, you're back, mate. Oh, it's such a good bit. Like, because I watched Marty Scurll when he was in Progress, which seems to somewhat of, even though their motto was "Don't be a dick," it seems to have been a haven for dickheads who are no longer about. But yeah, he brings a kind of like it's very much an English charm.
Yes,
like
absolutely.
English charm and a charisma, which I feel, especially when you're watching BTE bits, it's kind of something which is necessary to how the group feels when you're watching them on it. And it helps lead like an effortless flow between all of them. Because Hangman Page is a bit shyer at this point. I don't know if it's because he's younger. But as we said, he fully commits to the bit whenever he's like called upon. He's great. But Marty Scurll's a bit more of an effortless charisma, which
particularly
it really
humor-wise.
Yes. Well, like Marty and Flip Take Japan.
Yeah.
Like those, just like really little things that wouldn't work with somebody else or whatever. So you can see why he became so popular. I forgot he was the Whoop Whoop. So like,
that's like, everywhere.
It was everywhere. He was the guy kind of brought that in. And there's lots of little things that kind of birth out of this era. Like the elites overall are so responsible for so many chants that still exist to this day. They are so influential. They kind of, some of them have come core to AEW. Some of them have died out. Like I think it was the when you see a pin count, someone kicks out at 2. Where as the crowd then goes, like, that's died off.
Yeah.
It's fact they did it on every count. Like he's like, these things get 2 over or whatever. Like it was an exciting period at the time, and then once that bubble kind of moves on, okay, what's next? But yeah, for some of these guys, unfortunately for Marty Scurll, like his own actions finally came back. I think it was during COVID when the speaking out happened. So AEW existed already, and I think Scurll, like he'd been doing like NWA things, and I think he became the head booker at Ring of Honor as well.
Yep, yeah, he did.
All this happened.
Yeah, his contract didn't finish around when the rest of the guys did. So all of the elites' contracts, except for Scurll, finished at the end of the year. I think Omega's finished at the end of January 2019. That is, whereas Scurll's was timed a little bit differently. So he missed the initial sign in and then eventually ended up signing to continue with Ring of Honor as, you know, head of creative there. So he was running the place and then did not work out for him when Speaking Out came out and the allegations around him came out. I will just add though, look, fantastic go home promo from Marty Scurll. And one funny thing, before I get into what made it fantastic, one funny thing, after the Daniels promo and also after the Scurll promo, the camera would then go to someone who's like nearby and be like, who are you talking to?
Oh, yeah.
Who are you talking to? But Scurll
also got mentioned
about...
as it mentioned Okada because of what phase Okada's in at this point. He's affectionately called Balloon Okada. But it's like It's fair to say he had an absolutely legendary world title reign. Then when he lost it, he had a bit of a break, dyed his hair red, and then started hitting everybody with balloons. Like, just a bit. He went into full childish stuff. But watching this as well, you can see the character that he does in AEW. There's lots of notes of that hit in this stuff with the Marty Skull thing. Like the whole just jokey, mocky, the holding up the 205 hand signal as well, which was a like a lightweight cruiserweight tournament that WWE held. So Kazuchika Okada just saying, "You can't deal with me. You're a junior cruiserweight."
Yep.
why am I
you could go to 205 Live.
So good. Yeah, Okada's great in this period.
Yeah. But look, I was just going to say, I loved the sign-off line from Skrull that he's the only one that can stop the rain because he comes to the ring with an umbrella. Like, that's a great line. Let's move on though to another guy that didn't quite make it and has since revealed himself to be a bit of a weird dude. But sort of the heart and soul of the show almost in the lead up to All In. And one of the big like revolving bits was a guy called Flip Gordon, who was like this young guy that the Bucks obviously liked and Cody obviously liked it, that they noted through ROH. And he was this guy that tried really hard and really wanted to join the crew, but they never really wanted to let in. And Cody just refused to book him for All In. And so he had this odyssey of being like, I want to get booked. I need to get booked. And he had these matches where he tried to end up getting in. He had a match to become NWA champion to face Cody Rhodes. Because it was announced beforehand that Cody Rhodes would face the NWA champion. And so Flip has a match with Nick Aldis, which he loses. He has a tag match with Cody Rhodes against Madison Rayne and Joey Janela, I think. I might be wrong on that one. But anyway, like he has a tag match and they loses again, isn't able to get in because of that. And so
it's MJF and Madison.
Yes,
Rayne.
correct. Yes, you're right. You're right about that. Yeah, it was on the Indies, and it was like the winner of this mixed tag match. They're both going to go into All In. He loses again, and so there's this continual not booking of Flip Gordon to sort of set up what's going to be his point on the card. And, you know, it's just so warm-hearted. And there's this one just fantastic bit on it where they do like a complete bit for bit send up of the Terry Funk in Beyond the Mat when he goes to see that guy and try and book him as a referee for his for his retirement show, and the way that Matt Jackson pretends to be Terry Funk and Flip pretends to be that referee dude whose name escapes me at the moment. And I, for some reason, didn't write down, but it's so good. It's so perfectly done. And it's just one of my favorite all-time BTE bits, that one.
Because I was watching this and I was like, it's like they kept trying to do the same take over and over. And it's even on different days. Like Flip has got a differently trimmed beard between the shots. Like, it's just so silly. Oh, it's the face that Matt Jackson pulls.
Yeah. And the voice he puts on to like the Terry Funk voice. I want you to do it, man. Do it for me. Cody doesn't want it, Terry.
It took me a second to realize what was going on. To be fair, BTE's full of stuff like that. Because even though they're trying to do wrestling in a new way, in a different way, there's so many references and in jokes. Like it's a ridiculous level.
Yeah, and like it's a parody of like the most hardcore of wrestling documentaries. So you really have to be in it to get it. But if you're in it and you get it, it's hilarious. But yeah, look, that sets up Flip Gordon to be like, how's he going to get on the show? And that's like he never gets booked for the show, but how's he going to come onto this? Because they've obviously set him up. Obviously he's going to be on it somehow, but it's a question of how is he going to do it? And then probably the other one that you'd call the heart of the show, Cody Rhodes versus Nick Aldis for the NWA Championship, the 10 pounds of gold series, heading in so different to BTE in how serious it took itself, but also like so different to anything in wrestling at that point, really, with how seriously it took it as a sport and you know how it emphasized the legacy and it really set up Cody in particular, I think, to be like that pure bit of emotion and complete pathos on there that was not winking and nodding. It was completely authentic and completely vulnerable.
I think that it felt like something that really fit NWA. And this is the stuff which, if I'm like this, helps get the ball rolling for the stuff like eventually NWA had their power show on YouTube or whatever, their little old school studio show, which helps give like space for like the Vicky Saints in WWE now and LA Knight. Like they all got time on this NWA show, and a lot of that momentum was because of what Nick Aldis was doing with that championship at the time. I don't remember Cody's reign.
Well, I think he only had 2 matches.
Does he only? Oh, okay.
Yeah, he loses it pretty quickly. Yeah,
but Nick Aldis was in the midst of having held that title, which felt like a really long amount of time at the time, and he really helped establish NWA.
Well, he would go on. He would go on to hold it for much longer afterwards, after he won it back again. So,
okay, right,
yeah. I think he'd held it for, but I still think he'd held it for like a few hundred days at this point and done a number of things. And this was like, I liked this on the card because like All In is like everything's real modern style of wrestling, you know, and it's all these new people. But this is like a link to the past, and it's like the old being reinvented and refreshed, new coat of paint, but it's still got the legacy, it's still got the history to it. And you know, the way that Cody and Aldis played it was completely straight down the line. Like there was no goofiness with it. Cody is like, I want to do this. This was the belt that my dad won once upon a time. I want to win it, and I want to have it as part of my legacy as well. And Nick Aldis carried himself as such a good champion, you know, like he's always looked good in a suit, and it looks so good in a suit that like the WWE gave him a job because he looked great in a suit.
That's literally his job now, man in suit.
He looked good in a suit. But also talks a good game as well. And you know, them playing this straight down the line and making it Cody's dream. And so then it's like, well, this is Cody's dream to win the title that his dad once won at this show that he's putting on. It's like, it builds that moment up so well. And particularly with how they did the 10 pounds of gold series. I think, as I said, like it was, you know, where the WWE has that like over reliance on the history. This sort of brings the history in a little bit, a different part of the history of the industry, a history of the industry that the WWE wants you to forget, a history of the industry that WWE is sort of derided. But this is them going, no, this is still important. This history is still important, and we're going to take it and we're going to put our own spin on it. You know, it's on YouTube, and it's like the old is new again. And it really, like you're right, it really sets the scene for what they were going to do with NWA Power. You know, a year or so later when they launched that program, and it became its own thing for a little while there as well. Was there anything else you wanted to mention about the build though? Because I think we've covered enough the build, the sort of the build up beforehand, what was going to happen.
Not the last time I was on, but previously we covered a Kota Ibushi Kenny Omega versus the Young Bucks match, which coincidentally takes place in the middle of the build to All In like the middle of the Bullet Club is fine. So if you want mine and Sam's takes on that, you can go listen to that episode. That's where we talk about the Bullet Club is fine and all that stuff. And maybe I might have brought up on that show, but I don't remember. At that time period as well, me and Sam were both writing for Laws of Pain / Wrestling Headlines. And I took part in a media call for New Japan when they did their show. And the one before that, whatever it was called, it was Kenny Omega versus Cody Rhodes. And I asked Cody, is this show a measuring stick for what could be done in the future? And he gave quite a good answer. And I literally don't remember it. so I can find it. It might have been, for all I know, it might have been as small as, oh yeah, absolutely, like you would do on a media call, whatever. But I just remember in this time period, I was way more in the weeds than I am currently. Like I think me and Sam already talked about how we kind of both disengaged social media wise because look at it. But in this time period, we are so engaged in everything, be it message boards, Laws of Pain things, Reddit, social media, like properly being in this bubble. And just that Bullet Club is fine build, I think, is also important in terms of quality. The quality of storytelling to the fans was that proof of concept had already happened with the Bullet Club is fine run. So suddenly you're seeing that level of story be put into the really kind of clean effort from NWA, which that effort really, the way they would do 10 pounds of gold really fit the NWA for me. That was the type of promo they should be doing. But for me, the most important thing is it helps legitimize the show. Its wrestling legacy is incorporated into the show, without having to bring out legends or big names that you know. And like, it is weird to see what happened with Busted Open and Bully Ray Bubba, where he's on this show. Like, he's a key part. I think it was a key role in Ring of Honor at the time. So he's because I remember his name being brought up for the G1 Supercard, which comes on afterwards, because I remember on that show the Ring of Honor stuff was shit. It was all rubbish. But but he's in the Battle Royal, even features in the Flip Gordon match. Like, so they do have names on there, Billy Gunn as well. Like, they do have names there. But I guess aside from the women's match, there aren't really any like from the past names on the show, unless you count like Chris Jericho or Rey Mysterio, because they're still legends who are actively wrestling, whatever. But they don't call out anybody being like, this is a big show, let's celebrate wrestling's past, because the entire point was no, let's celebrate the current and the future. And obviously they massively succeeded. Not everybody worked through, but there are names on this show which have become the future of
I disagree with you there, Imp. But I think they put the future, the past was not the centerpiece, because you had, you've got, as I said, you've got Bully Ray, and then walking out with what's his name, with Cody, you've got like Tommy Dreamer and DDP, and DDP comes out in the match, and
I completely forgot about those.
Lenny Poffo walks out with Jay Lethal and giving him like the Ray for the Randy Savage gimmick that he does, to sort of legitimize that. But it's like, no, that's kind of like the side of things. It's the main point is the current guys, and of course, as we said, the show sold out in 39 minutes at the press conference beforehand. And after that, after I say this, we'll get into actually talking about All In. But I think it's all of this and the whole movement, the feeling and everything is perfectly summed up by something Matt Jackson said at the press conference. He said, All In isn't about a bet. It's about a feeling that we can go beyond, that we can break the status quo. And I think that so perfectly sums up the feeling of what it felt like to be part of the movement. You felt like you were part of the movement because they told you were part of it. And you kind of were, because you were the one that was like the engine powering and going along to these shows and writing about it and talking about it and watching the YouTube shows and everything. It felt like you were very much part of the movement. And it was a movement that felt like it was breaking the status quo of wrestling that I sort of summed up at the start. So let's get into the actual card itself.
One last quote from Cody.
Oh, yep. Go for it.
Which was saying that the implications of this show, in terms of like their nerves of getting it correct, he said the implications of this show, what it means for wrestling, what it means for the economy of wrestling. And I feel like in terms of like a personal weight that they were feeling at the time, as well as what we were just saying in terms of the excitement and this bubbling atmosphere for something like this as well. And so I think we have successfully, Sam, built up the annoyance and anger, then built up why the excitement is here. So, talk about the show finally.
Did you know that driving under the influence of marijuana is illegal? Driving high will get you a DUI. And if you're wondering if law enforcement can tell you're driving high, well, everyone else can. Friends?
I can tell you drove high.
Parents?
I can tell when you drive high.
Relatives?
I can tell. You drove here high, didn't you?
So what makes you think law enforcement can't?
I can tell.
If you feel different, you drive different. Drive high, get a DUI. Paid for by NHTSA.
Well, that's what we're here to do. That's what we're here to do. We're here to contextualize. We're going to talk about All In. Now, I don't want to break this down match by match. If you want to, you can go back and watch that. You can listen to people who do that. And actually, I have got, though, a little bit of a treat at the end of this, where the boys from This Is Awesome / Watchgate Wrestling podcast, who did a build-up to All In podcast back in 2018. I reached out to them, and they've provided a little reflection that I'm going to put at the end of this show. So stick around and you'll hear that. But and they break down this match by match a little bit. It goes for about 15, 20 minutes or so. What we're going to do, we're kind of just going to take cliff notes and reflect on bigger pictures around All In and around the whole event itself. We'll talk about matches, we'll talk about the performers, but sort of break it down into some bigger questions around the show itself. So firstly, Matt, the obvious thing is like, yeah, this was a bunch of like indie wrestlers, ROH. They haven't done a show this big. What was it going to look like? What did you think of the setup? What did you think of just visually? What do you think of how it looked?
Well, that was another joke that the Bucks and Cody were making, being like, "We've got a budget for this. If we do go over, we'll have to do a black curtain." But I think but they wanted it to feel like a proper production, like an actual show that you used to, like with because this environment at the time, only WWE advanced shows in arenas like this, and even Dave Meltzer was saying the last company to do it was WCW in 2001, but they were an established brand. If you're talking about an established brand, then he couldn't think off the top of his head of like anybody who has done what these guys are accomplishing. But the whole point was they wanted it to feel professional, wanted it to feel like you're watching this proper thing. And to be fair, when I first watched it, I'm pretty certain I was surprised of, oh wow, no, this is a genuine, like, this is a proper set as well. Because also at the time, WWE they'd started just carting around the same set for every single show they did. So there was no difference in the staging whatsoever. Maybe if you're lucky in London, they'd put a police box on there, but that's about it. That's about it.
A little red phone booth.
Yeah, that's the best you're getting. Just like minimal effort. What have we got in the storage? We can just pull over. But yeah, so yeah, it's the fact they got these like huge screens as well. Just like going vertically upwards. I thought it looked great. Especially as these are indie wrestlers who come out to the black curtain and maybe a projector just above the screen or whatever. And like, I don't know if they needed to, and they must have needed to pay for music rights for some stuff. So like Joey Janela at the time was coming out to the Hotline Miami theme, which was infinitely better suited for his character than the one that AEW did for him. Sorry, Mikey. if Mike Rose didn't do that theme, the Hotline Miami one just fit his character so well. But the overall production, I think, was really impressive, especially with what we're used to. And as much as we were singing about the New Japan Ring of Honor shows, there was always something about the production which needed improvement. And I'm not really sure they ever did. And like, even with their most recent G1 show over here, the production is still just really iffy when they come over to the States. So there was a little bit of a wobble, but I feel like they massively achieved it. If they were going for that big time feel, and because it needed to meet that feeling of celebrating wrestling and what wrestling is at the moment, because that was the feeling that isn't there for All In currently, because All In is now just AEW's biggest show, which is great. But at the time, this felt like once a year we could just do this thing where we bring all of wrestling together just to celebrate what it's like at the moment. And there isn't anything like that now. I mean, to be fair, this is the only time it's happened in my lifetime. Just a celebration of what all of wrestling is, and it's all incorporated into this one show. And making sure the production was on point was a massive part of it.
It's lit really well.
Oh yeah, that's a big thing.
It's lit really well. Like they got you could see the full scope of the crowd. Like, because it was so important. So much of this was about the 10,000 butts in 10,000 seats, and you could see the crowd so well. It was lit, but there was still spotlight on the ring, but then there was lighting up the ramp and stuff that they had as well. So yeah, fantastic, so well. Like the setup for this just looked so good, and it was packed from the start. Like they had this on a TV channel for the opening hour, and then it was on pay-per-view for the main show. And I actually remember they were quite smart about it. They put MJF and Matt Cross early on as a thing that if they were having technical production issues, it wouldn't matter too much if that was a particular match that got had some snafus in it as they were working through things with pay-per-view. So I think that was pretty good. Yeah. So what was your favorite match, Imp, at the time? And then we've both rewatched this as part of our sort of build up. What was your favorite match on rewatch?
So I think at the time it must have been Kenny Omega Pentagon. Like, surely at the time, I would have been just everything Kenny Omega. Yes, he's the greatest wrestler on the planet. There's all, like, in terms of, like, which of the wrestlers were, I guess, treated like the gods. You're talking Kenny Omega, Kazuchika Okada. Like, they were the two coming over from Japan. Because that is kind of an important sentiment which doesn't exist currently. At the time period, the Japanese wrestlers that came over were treated like gods. It's like Okada, Naito, Tanahashi. They were treated like these are the gods of wrestling right now, like the biggest deals in the world. above anything the US was doing. So when these guys came over, that's why Okada, even though he's doing the balloon gimmick, gets like the biggest reaction in the world. And Kenny Omega is within that pantheon at this time period. He really is just this. He's the elite star, which needed to get the showcase match. But that would have easily been my favorite match at the time.
Yeah, look, at the time, for me, it was Marty versus Okada was my favorite. I thought it was so well done. I loved the build. I didn't know that it went massively over time and so ruined the main event essentially. And obviously everything about Marty as well that's now come out. But at the time, that was my favorite. That was my match of the night. I loved the Marty Okada match. It was like such a David versus Goliath sort of thing. And as I said, I was like very charmed and impressed by Marty on BTE, and I really liked him as a wrestler. So I was really bought into this match, and I bit into this match. On rewatch, I think for me, there was the two that I liked, and I have to I really enjoyed Janela versus Hangman. But I'm trying to like be like, am I only enjoying this the most now because now like Hangman's my favorite now, so now I'm like locked in on that match but it is like a really good brawl, and really sort of sets the scene for the sort of style that Hangman would excel at in AEW. But also, I just loved watching the 6-man main event as well. Partly knowing how up against the clock they were, so it's like they're like they are wrestling this thing without taking a single breath. And like, I don't know if there's any selling in the match. It's just like, at one point you hear someone say, "We've got to go home. We've got to go home."
I think there's it's two very different feelings for me to the ones I enjoyed the most. I'm with that last match is really interesting just from fans of wrestling, seeing very blatantly, and it seems like everybody in the arena knows they've got to do like a 20-25 minute match in 10. So when we say in 10, we mean the show will go off seconds after that point. So they like need to be on it. And there's one point where they do what very much feels like a finish, but they use it as a false finish. And even on this rewatch, I was like, "Oh no, you don't have time to do a next bit." No. So the next sequence is like so rushed, done so quickly, and it's the bit when I think Nick runs up the ramp to do his leap off over the stairs.
Yeah.
And you can see everybody's rushing into position, and Kota Ibushi doesn't get there in time. So everybody collapses, and he just goes, "Oh no!" It just falls over. It's so funny.
What was your favorite on rewatch, Jim?
Genuinely, Christopher Daniels, Stephen Amell. I had such a good time watching that. Sometimes when a celebrity puts in a good performance, it just gets me. But on this rewatch specifically, I just had blind fun watching this match. I think that's the other thing as well. In the other matches, the main event is like interesting and it's fun in that way. Unfortunately, the Marty Scurll Okada, because Marty Scurll's in it, like there's that little bit of detachment. And because of the Joey Ryan thing, also me and Sam watched two different versions so that I watched the original broadcast. So I got all of the extras in there, or all the little bits cut down. I got them glowing about Tessa Blanchard a bit more because on my EW they've made edits. I got the Joey Ryan segment, which had been completely cut out. So I watched the whole penis druid stuff being that. And if you have not watched this show, yes, that is a sentence I said. Penis druid. He was a character. But on my AEW, Sam said it just cuts as soon as Hangman's won.
Yep. For those who don't know what we're talking about, at the end of it's a really good match between Hangman and Joey Janela. Like they take some insane risks. They go off the ladder. They like go through tables, all this crazy stuff. He does a buckshot over the Cracker Barrel, I think, as well. They got sponsored by Cracker Barrel, and he does a spot with it. So after that, Joey Ryan gets resurrected by his hot ass wife and turns up, does the penis suplex, which was a move at the time. And then penis druids come out in inflatable penis things and take Hangman away as the crowd chants "Rest in Penis." That part's cut off my AW. If you go there, you're not going to see that part of the show.
Yes,
it was very divisive at the time. Like some people loved it, who were like into that scene at the time, but there was other people who I think were watching it as the thing that, like, oh wow, this is the hot thing that's happening in wrestling at the moment, and they weren't happy about it. So, like, there was some people who weren't into it. I'd say the Christopher Daniels and Stephen Amell match, like, props to Stephen Amell, the way he does that. And the only thing I don't like about it is the way that Daniels sort of like just falls off the turnbuckle and then walks onto the table. He's eventually going to get through by Stephen Amell.
Oh yes,
right at the end, he like kind of just walks towards it and falls on it.
It was that did make me laugh, but it was Stephen Amell's commitment to it, where for doing that elbow. So for me, that just made it all fine.
Yeah,
like the emotion. I'm not thinking, Daniels wasn't in position, and he just kind of walks to the table, just lies on it. It's hilarious. But Stephen Amell properly crashes through that table. So that's the other thing as well, because it's a celebrity match. I forgot how many bumps Stephen Amell does. Like, he generally goes for this. And the other thing, and I was already in a good mood entering the match, because I had no memory at all that Stephen Amell doesn't come out alone. I've forgotten the actor's name, but I know him as Billy from Sirens, and me and my brother absolutely love that character in a silly American comedy, which only went on for like maybe 2-3 seasons, if that. And I don't know how well it was or popular, but yeah, it turns out he was in Arrow at the time. So he came with Stephen Amell. I was just like, oh, Billy, shit. So I was already in a good mood because I've seen him. And then you see, Stephen Amell properly commits to it. It's a really good celebrity match. I think celebrity matches are on their own different measuring. They're in a completely different arena to other stuff. But this is up there as, for me, one of the best celebrity matches. I just blindly enjoyed this.
Yep. Look, I definitely have to agree with you there. Let's kind of segue from that, because it's a good point to kind of go to. So, who the wrestlers that rose to the occasion? Of course, there's a lot of wrestlers on this who have never wrestled at this point before a crowd that is as big as this one, of, you know, the Bucks and Kenny and some of the guys who've been over in New Japan for a Wrestle Kingdom may have. But there's a lot of people on it who this is the biggest show they've ever wrestled in front of. And who are the ones that sort of rose to the occasion and rose to the spotlight and didn't shrink into it. And like, it's funny, the first person I've got written down here is Okada looked like the biggest star of the whole show when he entered. Yeah. And of course he does. Like, he is the biggest star, and he's wrestled in front of these sorts of crowds all the time. But there's like such an incredible shot of him entering. It's from his behind as he walks down those steps, and there's the Okada Bucks falling from the sky. Like, it's just such an incredible shot. Okada. Moving on from him, because you already mentioned how he's such a big star and gets like the biggest pop of the night. But I think particularly the two that I think rose the most to it were Hangman and Joey Janela. Both of those guys came across as really big deals. Like, for me, Joey Janela never looked bigger than when he came out on the stage with Penelope Ford by his side. Like, he felt to me, and it fooled me into thinking that he was going to be something more in AEW than what he became, but he felt like such a big deal and like such as someone that people could get behind because of the way he was presented on this show.
Yeah, the way he's presented here is what I would have liked for AEW to do. And then it was one of those where they never really committed to the character. It's kind of, he just became a guy that does table bits. So it's like, okay, fine, whatever. Or if you need another wrestler to get over in a hardcore match, he's the guy that takes the pin. It's like, okay, like Mox needs a first match. Fine, let's get Joe Janela. We need to test if the crowd will actually do want a death match. Fine, we'll do a tamer one with Joe Janela, which got some silly stunts in it. But when I was watching him, the main feeling I was getting was, in terms of like that style, what does Joe Janela offer that Darby Allin doesn't? Like,
fair point. Fair point.
So I don't know what he would lean, because obviously Darby Allin's nowhere near this show. He was still a child. He wouldn't be on this show. For me, it's his entrance as well. That Hotline Miami, that theme, it just encapsulates what Joe Janela was in this period so much, because he was kind of like a constant main eventing leading guy in the indies, and it made so much sense that if you're doing a celebration of wrestling of what it was at the time, you have to have Joe Janela on that show. Otherwise, it's not representative of what American wrestling independence was at the time. I agree. I totally agree. Both of those really rose to the occasion. And if Cody was even saying that he fully believed Hangman would be a guy promotions would be built around, this is kind of like early step of being like, "No, look at it, he can carry a match like this."
Yeah, and it's easy to say that now, given what he became. But at this point, he hasn't really done anything really significant singles wise in ROH. He's had feuds singles, but he hasn't won any major championships. He has just come out of the G1, so he's certainly a wrestler that is on the up and up. But he really took the stage strongly here in this match. The other name that I've got down here is in the 6-man party match at the end, the dream match, you've got Rey Mysterio, you've got Rey Fenix, you've got the Young Bucks, you've got Kota Ibushi. But the guy that stood out to me was Bandito. To me, he took the spotlight in that match. And at this point, he is so young and so fresh. And yet I think he'd had a big WrestleMania weekend that year in the lead up. But man, to go in and have those other people in the ring with you and be the one that stands out is that's a signifier of this guy is something special.
Even if Kota Ibushi doesn't get to do a lot just because they had to trim a lot down or stuff like that. So he's Kota Ibushi is the one to watch to really get that feeling of, they are running spot to spot, because it's so funny watching him trying to keep up, even though of course he can. But you can see so many of the echoes of what Bandito will become. Just the odd spot, the fall away slam moonsault thing, or the 3-person head scissors to do all 3 of them. There are echoes of Bandito there, and obviously, nowadays he's got it all figured out. It's incredible. You can just see the level of talent that he is. I've also got notes from the 0 hour, because there are, for me, I really enjoyed the Battle Royal as well, just because seeing who is in this thing. And where those names are now, what's happened since. So, I've already mentioned.
Well, my next question was, what surprised you watching it through again? So let's talk about the Battle Royale under what surprised you, because I was also surprised by the Battle Royale as well.
Because the bit I remembered most fondly was Jordan Grace. So just her amping up, taking on Buddy Ray, and actually getting a spot to really show it. Because the other thing that was in the air at the time, which must have faded away relatively soon, was there was a real push for intergender wrestling because of Lucha Underground. I mentioned Lucha Underground briefly earlier, but they were this really innovative lucha show, ran by AAA. It's a AAA sidebar thing. But the big stars coming out like Rey Fenix, Penta, and but one of the massive things they did was they didn't have separate divisions. Everybody wrestled in the same division, meaning you got guys versus women. And whenever I hear the argument of, it's not believable, it's not this or that, watch Lucha Underground. That's how you do it. It's they're lighter, they're smaller. So's Rey Mysterio. So you build the match like that. Or the amazing Penta versus Io Sky, Kairi Sane, and Mayu Iwatani. Him facing them back to back is an incredible match. But because of Lucha Underground helping put that spotlight, TNA were also dabbling with it at the time. Having intergender stuff, the massive push for Tessa Blanchard, which comes after this, because I think she got called out in COVID as well. I think that's when that happened. So but that was the last massive push for an intergender thing on one of the biggest shows. So there's a real push for it, and that is in the air thanks to Lucha Underground and all these other things. So Jordan Grace featuring in this match felt very natural. It felt very much, again, if you're showcasing what wrestling is like in this scene, then 100% you've got to have a woman in this Battle Royal. I guess Candice LeRae is actually another person to really push for that, because she was, I think she was teaming with Joey Ryan and others at the time, but she would get in there in the PWG shows and have the bloody brawls and whatever. So
her the Young Bucks and Joey Ryan famously had a very bloody match where she took the super kick thumbtacked boot to the face. So
another key figure into just having that feeling of intergender wrestling on the show. But the fact they gave Jordan Grace that spotlight felt awesome at the time. Again, a very different person in WWE at the moment. It's almost unrecognizable a human, even though they're the same person.
And I've got to, when talking about the Battle Royale, it's impossible not to mention one name, and that is Bully Ray. And he was very good in this match. You got to hand it to the devil. You got to hand it to Isis. You got to hand it to him. In this match, him being just this brute who did not want to take any of who wasn't there for any of the silliness, any of the fun, was just this dour, horrible presence that in the match was so good for getting that heat that would then ultimately triumph in, various wrestlers getting one up on him, and then ultimately be the thing that would send Flip Gordon into the match for the ROH Championship. Because of course the Battle Royale was put in there, and the winner of it would get to go into the ROH Championship. And Flip Gordon went in under a mask and managed to win it, which meant that he was finally booked on All In at the last possible moment. He finally got his spot on All In. But yeah, like the Battle Royale ended up, it could have been anything. It could have been a complete mess, but it ended up actually being like quite well structured. And had all the wrestlers got a chance to shine. Like Brian Cage was in there. He looked really good in it, I think. Like I had him noted down when I remember watching it and thinking, oh, Brian Cage is in there, and looking really good, as big and roided up as ever. Billy Gunn's in it.
Yeah. What was Damien Priest's name?
Yeah, Punishment Martinez.
Martinez.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy him being in there as well. Of all people. So yeah, look,
and Marco Stunt as well. Like he does his like spin around DDT, and that got a massive reaction, and probably helped him get signed.
And he what do you call it? He does he flosses. That's right.
Oh yeah, for dance. Wind it back to 2018 with dabs and flosses.
Yes. Let's move. Oh, sorry. This is another thing that surprised me. How silly it was at times, like with the in the Battle Royale, how silly that was at times, and then also like some little skits and stuff. They did like the skits with the managers pointing off, which was the SCU boys pointing and telling people how bad they were. It was very silly at times, the show, and I'd forgotten just how silly it was throughout over the time. Let's move along and let's talk about the guys that didn't make it to AEW, because there's some guys on here that you watch and you go, wow, they were on this show. And I think the biggest one for me was Rey Mysterio. Like, so he's part of the main event. He's part of that 6-man match. And it's, to me, he'd wrestled in New Japan earlier that year, a number of times, more than once. And to me, it's just like, wow, what if he had been one of the guys that had gone to AEW?
When he'd just had the stem cell surgery before going to Lucha Underground, and when you saw him in Lucha Underground, it was like, oh crap, Rey Mysterio's back.
He looks really good. He moves so much better.
When he left WWE, he was so slow, and he'd kind of like he looked worn down and kind of beaten down a bit. Like his body just couldn't keep up, because it's wrestling. It makes sense. Bodies break down. But then he got that surgery and he came back to Lucha Underground, and you're dancing with Ricochet and Ray Phoenix, Pentagon, and it was, oh my god, he was so good in that company. Then he gets to work a little bit with New Japan, and I'm assuming that's what leads to him being on this show here, just all those things together. But oh yeah, watching him in this match, just the thought of him dancing with the likes of Bandido still, or keeping up with him, like it feels like he could have been such an asset. I understand why he went to WWE, given that they've employed his son and all that stuff, possibly recently his daughter as well. So the family's there. I understand, obviously in the past as well. But yeah, he's definitely a big what if just because of his talent.
But man, his style would have fit AEW so well as well.
So well.
And it just would have been another string of like potential dream, like really good matches to start things off with. And yeah, like you can just see, and he really got trusted to be a top guy in the WWE. And I reckon there's a chance he may have got that if he'd gone to AEW. And part of me is like, maybe the fact that his match ended up getting truncated, and it probably felt pretty chaotic to him when he's used to the sort of the polish of WWE, seeing what was going on in All In, and how everything sort of culminated in that main event. Even though I said it was one of my favorite matches, particularly on rewatch, I can imagine being a participant in it would have felt pretty chaotic, especially when you're used to having a more settled workplace, and maybe you went, oh, I don't know if I want to entrust myself, let alone my son who wants to get into wrestling to this upstart company. But man, it's to me it is like just a giant what if. I don't know if it would have made a massive difference in terms of like fan interest and that sort of thing. But it just would have been like one of those additional links to WCW, like the line to that, and also like just another luchador to have right off on the start. Maybe he gets sort of paired up with the Lucha Bros or something like that, or maybe he's just his own thing. But yeah, I don't know how it would have been, but I just think it could have been a very cool link, and his style would have fit AEW so well. So it is to me, it remains, it's, you don't think about it very often because it's almost a surprise when you go back and watch all of it. It's like, oh, Rey Mysterio, I forgot he was there. But he just never even made it to AEW. Didn't come close. I think he re-signed pretty soon afterwards as well. Like he wasn't even one of the people where it was like, will he, won't he? It was kind of just like he was already back in WWE by the time AEW kicked off. Because
he in WWE during COVID, he had match of the year with Seth Rollins in Eye for an Eye. Remember that one? Or if we'd gone to WWE, we wouldn't have got that masterpiece. I guess to explain for anyone who's only watched AEW, WWE were already weird, and then COVID happened, and they got more weird, and they just kept trying stuff to keep your attention. So they did an eye for an eye match, but the whole point was you have to pop somebody's eye out. And I remember doing a pre-show, I've forgotten who I did it with, but there was, my thing was, what they should do is just go full Evil Dead, have Rey Mysterio's eye on a ping pong ball. Just do it. It doesn't matter. It's going to be rubbish. But they went the even worse route of trying to play it off as genuine. And I'm like, oh, no. Because it looks shit. That's why you just lean into it, go full Evil Dead, have it fly or something. But no, they went full serious with the whole injury.
Didn't he and Aleister Black also get thrown off the roof in that Money in the Bank ladder match that was like the race to the top of the Titan Tower? I think him and Aleister Black both were thrown off the roof and were just fine on Raw the next day.
And the explanation was even better because, don't worry, they're fine because there was a secret hidden secondary roof. I was like, what? Okay.
Look, we all did crazy stuff during the pandemic. 2020 was a bad year for all of us. Let's leave it at that. But let's kind of move on to more of the guys that I think most people expected to be in AEW. The people that have been heavily featured in the BTE, like they're well and truly embedded into the elite crew, and that's Marty Scurll, obviously, who was a huge part of BTE for a long time, and Flip Gordon, who, as I said, he had like a really important part in this, in how he was like the build up. Is he going to get in, and then finally getting in through the Battle Royale and having an ROH championship match against Jay Lethal on the card? Yeah, like it's curious to think about how they would have to AEW. It's funny, I think kind of more confident of how Flip Gordon might have fit in than I am where Marty Scurll would have ended up in AEW.
Well, because the rumor was he was going to be the Dark Order leader. I think that was one of the things going about, which kind of fits with the Villain Enterprises thing. And that must have fallen apart early because, of course, Brody Lee came in well before any controversies with Marty Scurll. I think he was still wrapped up in the Ring of Honor deal at that point.
Yep.
So, I don't know. I think his Ring of Honor deal scuppered that more than him getting called out. But, he 100% would have been AEW. It feels like a guy they would have built a faction around. He would have been a featured player without doubt. I feel like it's not even within question. Flip Gordon, I could see him featuring in the mid card. Oh, it's another one though, because all of the criticisms that Cody's making in character about Flip Gordon, like there's a reason he's not called Charisma Gordon. Like there's things like that, where I still feel like in AEW that still would have caused a bit of a problem, just because there still is that missing piece with Flip Gordon, and he's found a home in CMLL, but I feel like in AEW he might have struggled to connect. Being associated with the elite would have helped, but I get that feeling because AEWs have had those talents which are really athletically gifted, but they're just lacking in that charisma, and that does hurt them even in that space.
Here's how I would have played Flip Gordon. I would have just taken him, put him in Sammy Guevara's role. That would have been that's exactly what I would have done, because then the betrayal stings even more. when he betrays on the first Dynamite, he betrays Cody and betrays the Elite who got him there to join Chris Jericho. And that's that. I just plug him straight in there. Sorry, Sammy. But Flip is now one of the pillars. They both do flips, right? Marty, that's a good point. I didn't think about Marty in the Dark Order. I'd forgotten about that because in my mind I was trying to think of like, oh, where does he even fit? Because he was so over to the Elite crowd. And you know, like the whoop whoop bit was just so popular. Everyone loved doing it. And you know, it even like it expanded out beyond some of the things that he was involved into. It was just something that happened at shows just generally, rather than, you know, specific related to him. That's how popular it got. But if he wasn't in the Dark Order, it's just like, does he fit in the mid card? You know, part of the Codyverse, maybe Nightmare Factory. I don't know. Like, how do you fit him in? Given that he not as clear of this is going to be a future ace like Hangman Page, but he's not as established as this guy is one of the best in the world, like Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks. So, you know, it would have been, yeah, it's interesting to think where he would have gone if he'd been in there. And I guess leader of the Dark Order would have been a good option. You know, he was a really good wrestler, and if everything hadn't come out about him, then I've no doubt he probably would have found somewhere to fit into AEW and become part of what was going on with the Elite and the toing and froing of all that. And, you know, played some part in what happened with Hangman Page as well.
Yeah, 100%. But also fuck him. But yeah, it's the same.
Yeah, he's a.
Yeah.
I think in England you call him a nonce, right? That's what the
that's the word.
Term for it. That's the official word for it. Another interesting one, Nick Aldis. I'm curious if he was ever seriously thought of to go into AEW. He's a guy that I really even more so don't know where he fits, because just the working standard in AEW is just beyond anything I've ever seen from Aldis. But man, he could talk and he looks good in a suit. So as we've said a few times, so, you know, and he ended up doing NWA Power, which, you know, had a moment when when Dynamite kicked off. It was the same week that the first Dynamite happened that the first NWA Power came on as well. And it was, you know, like this huge thing where you had NXT kicking off on what channel was it on? I think it was on USA, going live for 2 hours. Up against Dynamite, and then you also had Power coming on live as well and debuting that week. It was a crazy week of wrestling. I think SmackDown also debuted on Fox around that time as well.
That feels about
so much going on. Yeah, so much going on. So Aldis. Anything to say about Aldis before we keep moving down the list?
Yeah, I kind of agree that, of course, he made the decision to stay in NWA, and that kind of came a place where quite a few English people ended up, because I remember watching Stu Bennett, aka Wade Barrett, interviewing Marty Scurll for an NWA thing. So I was like, oh, they were all there at one point. But yeah, so I think he made the decision to stay, but I don't know what the outside offers were. I don't know who's coming after. I assume WWE weren't, because in that period, WWE, they'd raided the super indies, but because Vince McMahon was still running the main roster, there were certain people that you just never thought would get pushed in a certain way on the main roster. There was a massive separation of trust. It's fair to say. So NXT basically became a great generator for AEW talent. Like the number of black and gold people who ended up in AEW. But yeah, I don't see where Nick Aldis fits. I'm totally with you. Even though I rate him as a talent, I think he fit NWA so perfectly that I just don't see how he would have worked in AEW.
Another one that is AEW is very fortunate they passed on, but apparently got an interview in WWE out of all places is Joey Ryan.
Really? I didn't hear about that.
Apparently at the time, I just remember there was just stories going around about, like, because of what was happening, WWE was just scrambling trying to get anyone, and Joey Ryan said he had to the WWE. It's like, yes, you have watched his gimmick, right? Like, he's not.
Yeah, how could you possibly?
Yeah, this guy's not going into the WWE. Like, AEW didn't go for him, and thank goodness they didn't. I mean, like, that's a huge bullet dodged. Even if he hadn't turned out to be like a sex pest, like having that on that on your screen. I think he actually ended up wrestling for Impact in the end for a short period of time. Yeah. And I remember seeing something with him and Ken Shamrock getting dick flipped on Impact. So yeah, TNA was TNAing hard at that point. Another one that this is one that a bit more serious, who got really strongly featured in the women's 4-way, but Tessa Blanchard, because the early on AEW women's division was very heavily criticized in some ways correctly. I think it was probably overly harsh on it in some ways because it was just there wasn't the talent that you would need to have a fully fleshed division that to the standard that was people wanted. There just weren't the wrestlers out there at the time, and the wrestlers that were there, even the ones that were stronger wrestlers like Hikaru Shidas and Britt Baker, were sort of finding their feet still when it all kicked off. And having someone like Tessa Blanchard would have been great in terms of just having a strong wrestler. She was with Impact at the time, and I think was sort of earmarked to go to WWE until the stuff about the racism came out. But it's an interesting thought to think, if they had maybe had more deeper discussions with her and what that would have looked like, it definitely would have strengthened the in-ring in 2019, at least for their women's division.
Oh, absolutely. I remember at the time, I totally bought into the Tessa Blanchard character. I thought she was going to be one of the next big things. I always got the feeling of WWE more than AEW, but and obviously in hindsight, that feels more attached just because TNA's become attached to WWE. So you just think TNA, I think, that means the pipeline. But at the time, TNA, they entered agreements with AEW. So it's a very different pipeline. But yeah, I totally bought into her. It's the fact that her racism got called out on the day of her having her big world title match main event against Sami Callihan. All of that hard work, TNA had built the company around her, and it was about to take a huge swing by making a woman their main champion on the show. And it seemed like the whole fan base wanted it. It was the right thing to do. They successfully gotten over intergender wrestling, and then the day of it happens, and they decide to have her win, just do what they were planned anyway, because it's the day of. They don't know how it's going to end up. But it turned out, no, there was absolutely no recovery after that. And like Flip, she's found a career in CMLL. So she's ended up somewhere. But I just felt like she had everything to be a megastar. But there've been little reports of her own ego and things, but you never know what could cause a report like that. So I don't take those too heavily. But as soon as racism came out, I was like, oh, okay, right, yeah. There's no working around that. Yeah, a very, very promising career, but she got in her own way there.
Yeah, another interesting one to think about is Chelsea Green. Obviously, she very quickly went to the WWE after that. I think in 2019, she ended up in the WWE, but at the time was in Impact, I think. Then got let go by the WWE and came back, and now is their world champ. Now is a world champion, has become beloved by their fan base. And I always liked how hard she tried. She was so willing to take risks and put herself out there. Even you look at her presentation in this match, with the split personalities, it's not going to be for everyone, but she's trying something different and trying something, to be different and get over. I remember people made fun of this, but there was a report came out that she had pitched being the Mary Magdalene to Seth Rollins' Vision character when he was really heavily leaning into I am the Messiah of Monday Night Raw and that sort of thing. And she was pitching being this crazy Mary Magdalene for him. And I thought that, I was like, why are you criticizing her pitching something that is, sort of interesting, it might not be for everyone. But people, seem to not like that. And it seems like now, well, it doesn't just seem like it, it's plainly evident that she found a way and she found a path, however winding it was, to a fan base and has become beloved by the WWE fans. Now, I don't know if it would have helped AEW having her on the books in 2019. I feel like it would have been more of the same criticism in terms of it's not exactly the strongest roster in terms of in-ring, but she would have definitely been a compelling personality. At least she's a creative person. if she had been signed up.
Oh yeah, her creativity is certainly a plus. You saw it in well, it's the reason she got onto this card. You saw it in Impact. You saw it in in WWE. In fact, her first run isn't bad. It's just WWE at the time were all over the place. And when she comes back, it's Triple H who always did seem to see something in her, even if Vince didn't get it. Because we know from Swerve that they were calling up the people that were formerly NXT who was trying to get them back, being like, okay, I've always wanted to use you. So he was calling those people back. I think that's me playing it in quite a kind light, actually describing it like that. But she was one of those people where it just it screamed that there was clearly something there, but Vince is gonna Vince. And there were so many acts that clearly had something that he just didn't get. I'm massively thinking of Swerve there. Like, of course, Vince didn't understand Hit Row, of course. But yeah, Chelsea, I'm with you that she would have been a great creative force, but that wasn't the criticism at that point. And nowadays, you get a bit of criticism of like creative laziness or whatever. But at the time, it was more that we want AEW to be this like different style of incredible wrestling, like it is now with the moniker of this is where the best wrestle. That's kind of what the fan base were wanting from minute one, and it took them a little while to find it, especially in the women's division.
Oh, it took years.
For me, it doesn't actually start to go anywhere until Britt Baker Thunder Rosa, like that hardcore match. Like that was the first time it was like, oh, this could be a trajectory, and then for a little while, the women's roster would kind of stagnate a bit until they did a hardcore match, and suddenly they'd light up again. And it was, I mean, really, they don't find their footing properly until, I guess, Tony Storm, and then Mercedes comes in, and so you got it. Suddenly you got talent bubbling underneath as well, and it's all got quite a good flow right now. But I agree. I don't think Chelsea Green would have helped particularly in that manner, even if you would have bought some good creativity.
The last person I just wanted to mention, because when I think about All In, I think about this guy. And it's someone who I haven't seen much of at all in terms of as a wrestler, but he's on this card, and that's Matt Cross. And the reason I think of him is I think of it almost in a tragic way, because he's the kind of guy who would have potentially, if AEW had come along 5-10 years earlier, he probably would have had like a long and relatively comfortable mid-card career. You know, this is not a guy who's going to be your world champion. But he would have probably made a lot more money in the industry. He probably would have had a lot more of a comfortable living than what he did. I don't know what his professional situation was like. I'm guessing at times he was probably moonlighting as a wrestler and working other jobs at the same time. I don't know any of this. I'm just guessing. But, you know, he's not a guy who's ever had a large platform. This and Lucha Underground are like the highest points of his career. And I wonder how many more people out there are like him. You know, they were never going to fit the WWE mold. They weren't going to be there. They weren't necessarily on they weren't on the books of the super indies. But if AEW had been around, because they would have larger roster needs, he probably would have got in somewhere and you know, had a run for 5 years or so, you know, unremarkable maybe, but he would have had a very different career had AEW been around then. Instead, unfortunately, like, he never got employed by AEW, and I don't think he was probably never even really close, to be honest. I don't know, but I'm just guessing that. But he's on this card, and it's like tragic, but it's also great and beautiful that he gets to be on that card. Like, for him, I guess, a man who's dedicated his life to indie wrestling, how awesome is it that he gets to be on the biggest indie show of all time? But it's also sad that it's like the landscape being what it was at the time, you know, someone like him had to exist in a way that, you know, isn't necessarily as big as it could have been. And there's probably many, many, many more people like him.
Oh, yeah. There's so many people who work those indie scenes and get a decent living from the indies. I mean, at this time as well, there were quite a few making a decent living from the independents. I feel like the Elite and the Bucks showed you don't have to be WWE or major company to be doing okay. Joe Janela, as far as I know, like, he's doing absolutely fine. Matt Cardona, when he had his indie run, he was doing all right. But we're talking about top guys there. That's not what Matt Cross is. I mean, his Son of Havoc run in Lucha Underground, that I feel like that earned him a lot of respect from fans. like that faction with him, Evilise, and a third person. I can't remember the big one because he was the smaller one. Yeah, I remember that faction really got over and it really worked. So he had a good run there. It was just a shame that he finally did find a place properly, find a home, and then that home didn't really take off. Which isn't his fault, but yes, it's just a bit of a shame that all happened. Because that suddenly that seemed like that's going to work. That was the best place. But yeah, bit of a shame. He's one of those ones who I guess you call a mid noughties into the mid tens kind of wrestler. Just that generation, unfortunately, it's too late. Where the only other option really is TNA, and that's kind of not the best in terms of creativity or whatever. Unless you get into the X division and then you can find some form of home, but then there's no guarantee you're going to get paid. You probably work a second job anyway. But then then AEW comes about, and by the time All In happens, he's kind of the trusted veteran to the young, highly promising young talent in MJF, who looks like a child. Just what it is. It's like, who's this clean-shaven kid? I mean, it's quite impressive that he's still got all the mannerisms and he's got it all down. He's got his catchphrases are already formed, even at that age. You can see why people are so high on him. So he's got so much of the character down. He's still figuring out a lot of the wrestling parts of it. But he's even in that realm, he's still got so much he's already figured out at the age 22 as well. You can see why they were so high on him. But yeah, he was trusted enough to be the trusted veteran to help that young guy. So obviously he's still trusted in there. I assume he still gets booked every now and then. I've not followed him. I don't know. But to be fair, there were quite a few on the GCW cards who I would assume would just be indie lifers, but not.
Yeah. There's very little other matches we haven't really touched on. The only one I think we haven't touched on, the only person really is Jay Lethal and versus Flip Gordon, of course, the ROH champion coming in. This is just kind of in my segment that I've called wrap up and talk about the matches we haven't talked about yet. And there's only really one, and that's like Lethal versus Flip Gordon. Of course, Flip wins the battle royale at the start of the thing to get booked into the card and has this match. And then there's Jay Lethal does his bit that's off BTE where he cosplays as Macho Man Randy Savage, but with Lenny Parfo, Macho Man's real life brother, sort of bringing him to the ring, letting him wear one of the Macho Man's actual jackets, which is kind of really quite cool. A jacket that he wore in WCW. And he does his stick. He gets woken up and wrestles as Jay Lethal for a bit, then goes back to being the Macho Man. Then I think he goes back to being Jay Lethal. I can't remember how many times he goes back and forth now. But he does a funny moment where he picks up Brandy and he starts treating her like she's Miss Elizabeth. Very silly, but very much playing to the bit that was running at the time on BTE and got over pretty hugely. And honestly, I'm not the biggest fan of Jay Lethal. It's probably more entertaining that he wrestled as the Macho Man than he wrestled as Jay Lethal on this card, if I'm honest.
Because he's so fondly remembered from when he did that gimmick in TNA, because they changed his name to Black Machismo, and they did the whole thing. He was full in character the entire time in that period. I remember that was my first introduction to Jay Lethal, was him under that gimmick, and I really gravitated to him. I really liked him in TNA. He had a great feud with Sanjay Dutt. So he's someone I really enjoyed watching in TNA. This match, there's a reason that we didn't talk about it. There's a reason we forgot. We've not mentioned at all this match. The Battle Royal's more interesting. Even Flip's role in there, because he's under a mask as Chico Hernandez. I think this is the name of the cat. Like a luchador legend that doesn't exist. And they had a bit on BTE when I think it's Rocky Asuka under the mask, and he was saying, "I want tickets for my son. I could get a spot for my son, and this and that." And he lists through his whole family, and Cody is just like no. But one of the things they talked about, I think on the BTE after All In, was that Stephen Amell had they wanted to bring his crew, his entourage, and apparently that was like around 30 tickets they want comped, and Cody was like, "Stephen, we sold out in 29 minutes. There are no comps. We're giving you a nice locker room, but there's nothing." So I just found that quite funny.
I always found it funny with Jay Lethal. You know, he made a big deal of being Mr. TNA. And then when it was announced that TNA was going to be shutting down, he was literally the first person to jump ship. It's like the freaking rats are exiting the boat, running off the boat. He's the first one to jump ship, is Mr. Ring of Honor.
Like, that run is actually quite good with him as Ring of Honor champion, with Truth Martini, I think that's his name, Truth Martini, his heel run as champion. It's genuinely a good run. I generally think that's a really good outlet of work. There's a reason Ring of Honor had him hold the title for as long as they did. He did really well in that period. Again, it's a period before this explosion here. So unfortunately for Jay Lethal, it's just too early. And this is almost on like the tail end of it. So he's doing a fun little callback gimmick. Like, it's not peak Jay Lethal anymore, which is a little bit of a shame. But it's quite interesting that we still get him today in AEW. Like, even though I'm saying that it was at the tail end of his like big peak was 8 years ago, and he's still wrestling, he's still actively featured. He's a main guy. He's not a main player in his stable. He's a main player in his like C-level stable. So I guess that counts, whatever that is.
It's been a long time. He was, when, you know, there was a time when his stable was featured far more heavily on Dynamite and even Collision and Rampage, but it's been a long time since then. It's years and years. So yeah, and honestly, for the better. I'm not really a big fan of Jay Lethal, watching him wrestle, to be honest. But look, that covers all the matches off. But the one thing I wanted to talk about, which I thought was really cool, just to sort of put a bow on All In the event, was the post-match promo. Because it is so cool. Everyone in the building stays. There's everyone is still in their seats for the post-match promo. And of course, it starts off with Ray actually cutting a promo because he's still in there, and he thanks everyone for being there, and then he hands it over to Matt Jackson, and his Ray's team sort of leaves, and it starts, the elites start coming out. So you get Cody coming out, you get Hangman, Brandy, eventually Mama and Papa Buck come out. They get their families in there, and you can really see the camaraderie and how like happy they are at the end. Kenny comes out. The only one who's not there is Marty Scurll, which is in hindsight hilarious. But yeah, but you can see like the camaraderie. They're like, you know, when they don't have the camera, they're like all patting themselves and like you can see them sharing little words to one another in the ring. And then you listen to what they say on the mic, and it is really hard to listen to this and not think, man, these guys are going to set up a new company, because Matt Jackson gets on the mic and he says, you guys want good pro wrestling. You guys want good entertainment. What we presented was our vision that we think of pro wrestling. Do you want more of this? And then Cody says, when you make a bet, sometimes you go double or nothing. And then Matt says, but if you want pro wrestling from the cast of Being the Elite, then we will give you more of this. And then Cody says, we will stick together. No company owns pro wrestling. We, and pointing to the crowd, not himself, but well, including himself in it, but we own pro wrestling. Yeah, it's really hard to sort of listen to that. But it's cool as well. Like it really like puts a bow on that moment. This immense thing that these guys have done, this like flag that they've planted, this success that they've generated when people doubted them and people thought it couldn't be done. And they get to bask in the glory of it, and good for them. You know, and you can see how excited and how happy they are as well that they managed to get it done and pull this thing off.
Yeah, you can tell the way that they're talking that they're thinking of, oh, this is extremely successful. We can try and do another, like, essentially super indie show celebrating all of wrestling next year. We can bring everybody together. We don't know what they were formulating. Of course, Double or Nothing was a thing in their heads. But we fast forward half a year, and that's when they announced AEW, calling it a proper promotion. So obviously, in the because I know they used this to help sell the idea of AEW to the networks. So, and obviously Tony Khan's their backing is a massive thing. Just being like, oh yeah, don't worry, we've got a proper billionaire funding this, so yeah, it won't hit your budget too badly.
Well, so I can jump in and talk about some of that if you like, because I've done the research, read the articles, blah blah blah. So in the lead up to All In, the the Bucks had met with, and this is mostly from the Bucks perspective, and they were talking about they know that Kenny was also chatting, and Hangman Page and Cody were talking separately. So this is mostly from the Bucks perspective, and then you've listened to various shoot interviews with the other people in play, but the most comprehensive take of it is in the Bucks autobiographies that they wrote. And so in the months leading up, they had taken meetings with Triple H and ROH. They were very they were offended by the offer that they got on the table from ROH, and Kenny was offended by the offer that he got put on the table by New Japan. And so they knew they were going to leave. And so they'd taken a meeting with Triple H on the phone. They'd been, gone back and forth with him, been very impressed about, what they offered. They didn't get back to him, and Triple H upped the offer and kept on upping the offer. and he also had before All In, he had a missed call from this guy called Tony Khan, and didn't think much of it, and was just like, okay, I'm so busy, I don't have time to think of this, and he, wasn't necessarily just very trustful of it, but was told by other people to actually reach out to Tony Khan. So he did, but not a lot was said before. They were just so busy doing All In. But within weeks of the show happening, Matt and Nick had their first face-to-face meeting with Tony Khan, and that idea of AEW started to take shape. So it was very, very quickly after this, they started doing that. Tony Khan apparently was backstage at this. Famously, he flew Chris Jericho from where Fozzy was doing their thing to this show, or maybe it was the other way around. I can't quite remember. But he gave a private plane for Chris Jericho to use so he could make both bookings. And that helped show the Bucks and Cody and the rest of the Elite that Tony Khan was into this. He was keen to help out in any way he could. And yeah, they started having serious meetings after All In with Tony Khan to see what was on offer. And if you read what's in the Jackson's books, and this is written, in the period after that all AEW had started, so you never know how much they're spinning it to be like we were always going to be AEW. But from what they said, they very quickly decided that they wanted to go with Tony, and they wanted to go with All Elite Wrestling. They very much said that they liked Tony's vision, and they liked that Tony respected their vision as well. Whereas with the WWE, they felt like they would probably just be yet another act in the WWE rather than something that was made more in their image, which was what they were sort of working with Tony to create in All Elite Wrestling.
Because I wrote a column at the time talking about, I think it was Kenny specifically, whether he should go or not. And the amount of comments that I got saying, well, every wrestler wants to go to WWE, and they're obviously offering big money, so it'd be absolutely stupid not to go to WWE. It makes all the sense in the world to go to WWE. And I'm just kind of like, have you not been engaged at all with the whole change the world thing? Their entire point is trying to present wrestling in a different way. And all of Kenny's friends, I guess even going to the All Elite thing, it's because at the time, it had been so long since there'd been an actual competition that it was very much, this is the state of the world, therefore this is the way it always will be. And the Bucks and the Elite were just going, why? Why can't we change it? And that seemed to be the entire thing. All In did change the landscape of professional wrestling. It did change the economy of wrestling. There's absolutely no denying that. For the better of the wrestlers, because now they have a bargaining chip. Even in this crappy TKO era where they're cutting people like mad, their biggest stars will still have that bargaining chip. They can say, well, there's this competition over here that will offer good money. So it's been so much for the better of the company. But at the time, I understand why people could not believe a different world. Obviously, I thought it small-minded to be like, can't even imagine things changing. It's not etched in stone. You can't change it. It's things change and adapt. But at the time, there just was that huge sentiment of wrestling was about to go through an absolutely massive shift and huge change. And the other half of it was watching WWE and seeing the panic almost, because NXT had become that super indie. They kept trying to call people up to the main roster, but Vince never understood any of the characters or whatever. And then with the Wednesday Night Wars, NXT received the blame for AEW's start. Well, no, it was Vince. His show sucked. It's the boring answer. It wasn't a good show. And it was I called it dumb earlier, and I mean that purely in the way it's presented, the way it tells its story. It purposely dumbs itself down to tell its story. And the Young Bucks would be like, well, why can't we tell it in a different way? Why can't we tell more adult stories? And that was the other moniker of more adult storytelling, more sports focused, which was why I absolutely loved Rocky Romero then going to New Japan and doing a basketball bit with Taguchi. Yes.
And I should note that in the book, this book is All Elite, the inside story of AEW, which is the book that came out last year about the creation of All Elite Wrestling, as reviewed here on the AEW Match Guide back last year on November 7th last year. Tony Khan had already decided that he wanted to do something before All In. So he decided that he saw like the boom in indie wrestling, and he saw the way that the rights market for live sport was picking up, and he had already started talking to Warner about it, the network head at Warner about it earlier that year, and it just happened to coalesce that All In was happening, and it was the perfect sort of thing. Interestingly, you hear in the book with the Jacksons that Hangman Page, he was pretty anxious. He had a pretty good offer on the table from NXT, from Triple H and NXT. He'd had meetings, but when Matt and Nick told him what they were going to do, he immediately said, I'm riding with you. There was no question about Kenny. The one who apparently flip-flopped the most and was the most indecisive about it, was sometimes saying he was going to stay with ROH, sometimes saying he was going to go back to the WWE, sometimes saying he would be AEW, was Cody. And bear in mind, this was written before he left as well. As I said, this was written well before 2022, even before 2021. So, yeah, it's just interesting to reflect on it, given what ended up happening with everything, that Cody was the one that was the most indecisive at the time. It's interesting to look at All In and say, what do we see in this show that has sort of come across other than the wrestlers? And if I'm honest, there's not a lot. If I look at All In, it is very different to what you see in AEW. Early AEW, when it was probably more influenced, that 2019 era, by the Elite, it retained some of the silliness, but of that All In had some of the bits and whatnot. But it right from the get-go, even it had a much more serious vision of wrestling than what was presented at All In. All In was really like an indie supercard with like just dream matches. Whereas in its earliest, like there were always stories in AEW, and it was always like feuds and rivalries and things like that. It was hardly ever the vibe that All In had. In fact, and this is probably my biggest hot take, the show that reminds me the most of All In AEW is Forbidden Door. And that is the pay-per-view that gets pilloried every single year. And people are always, Forbidden Door, there's never any stories. It's just matches. No one will know the stars, and everything has to go on hold because we have other people coming in. And it made me reflect on Forbidden Door. And I was like, maybe to like rejuvenate Forbidden Door, they should try and turn it into more of a broader thing, more in the spirit of All In. And like, now that, with my AEW bringing in so many different promotions, it's like, let's make this like Forbidden Door can be like a supercard where we've got not only do we have CMLL and New Japan, although New Japan are actually like doing pretty awesome right now. They've got a pretty good G1 going on at the moment. Like, not only do we have CMLL and New Japan, we've like bringing in some of the like the standouts from indies, like, bring in Mad Dog Connolly to have a dog collar match with someone. There's lots of options out. Bring in like, I don't know, just to really throw something wild out there. Bring in Matt Tremont to have a death match with someone, like with MJF maybe. Like, wouldn't that would be so cool? And if it's going to be a pay-per-view Forbidden Door that is like, okay, we're going to kind of put our storylines on hold, let's do it, and let's harken back to the original All In and have more super matches, have more like promotions clashing and just random thrown together matches that you don't think would exist. Like, at the time, Kenny Omega versus Pentagon. This is like the champion of New Japan versus the champion of Impact. throw them together, see what happens. This super thing, Rey Mysterio, the Young Bucks, Kota Ibushi, Bandito, like all these people from different organizations just thrown in together and see what happens. I don't know. To me, when I look back on All In, and I think about what AEW looks like now, that's the show that it reminds me the most of, and it's how I would love to improve Forbidden Door would be to make it an ode to the original All In.
Yeah, it's kind of what I was hinting at earlier when I was going to say, like, the All In nowadays isn't what this is at all. It's closer to their WrestleMania, their big stadium show. So it's good that it is paying homage to their beginnings. But yeah, totally with you. Forbidden Door, kind of the idea of it was we're opening the door to all these other companies, and this is where you're going to see all sorts of people coming over. And it made sense at the time that door would be to New Japan. And then there's a weird period where their deal was with AAA, and then Conan happened. And it just got complicated. That's the other thing as well. They wanted CMLL talent, I think, on a Forbidden Door show, and Conan was like, absolutely not. And in the end, AAA are now owned by WWE. Gone completely the opposite way. CMLL have and CMLL, well, look what happened. AAA, the reason it got bought by WWE was because CMLL started dominating. They started having absolutely incredible runs, and again, touched on it earlier, but they've just on they're breaking their own records for consecutive sellouts, which is crazy. Like, doing incredibly well. And so that means when they come over to AEW, it does feel like you could do a Forbidden Door type thing, even though it's a cross contract. But yeah, I was going to make the exact same point as you, that surely Forbidden Door needs to adapt to the time rather than it staying with the same two companies, and especially in an MyEW world where at least sections of your audience are going to be exposed to all of these other companies, like Maple Leaf, Rev Pro, the American ones. I'm not paying attention to the American ones, but they're on there. And if MyEW becomes that kind of hub, then you can easily use it as some form of like display for these indie talents. And this is why you should be watching these shows on my AEW. Because that's the other thing, it goes the other way. Use this to promote your stuff on my AEW. Surely. Surely next year's Forbidden Door or something. Give it a spotlight just to at least try and convince me that I should be checking out this stuff. Even if I'm an adult in my mid-30s with no time, I'd like to think that I would want to watch these shows. At least you can do that for me.
Yeah, and I would say also the spirit of the fan movement that powered All In and that filled those 10,000 seats. You sort of said this earlier, actually, I think, and it's true in many ways. It really continued on when AEW started. Like when AEW started, they sold out Double or Nothing. Early Dynamites were selling out like hotcakes because people were just so excited to see that. There was people flying to every show at one point. That obviously doesn't happen anymore, and that slowed down. Obviously, COVID probably was a weird aberration because they couldn't have fans for a long time, and they probably would have started slowing down through 2020 when they started, having return legs to places they'd already been, and people are like, oh, I've kind of gone and seen that. I've got something else on tonight, or, I'm busy at work, blah, blah, blah. It's not as much of a priority to finally go and see AEW. But that kind of gets postponed until they return in 2021. And then it's like, oh, finally we're back on the road again and everyone wants to see them again. But it really continued like that atmosphere. It really continued through until the first all in that AEW did, which was at Wembley Stadium, where they sold the 83,000 tickets or however many it was, 70,000 70,000. Like, really, it doesn't matter. I've said this before, like if it was 60,000 seats, 60,000 people there, it doesn't matter. It's still like incredible that it happened, whether it's 80,000, 60,000 or 100,000. Like it's wildly successful in any of those numbers. And it really is a testament to this movement of people that were mobilized by the elite at this time, that not only did they fill up the 10,000 seats here, but they actually went on to do even more. And that Meltzer thing of like, I don't think anyone could do more than 10,000 looks like really foolish almost, but at the same time, it's completely understandable given the landscape of wrestling that we outlined right at the start of this episode, that, no, I don't think anyone else can because WWE's got a monopoly. Well, turns out not only could this little engine that can do a little bit, They could do a lot, and then they could do even more. And I think that there's still elements of that movement that are part of AEW, less and less so every year, but it definitely continued strongly until that first All In at Wembley.
Yeah, and as someone, because the other thing with that All In Wembley is, which I feel like is going to be a constant problem afterwards, was just the sheer level of traveling in fans for that Wembley show.
Yeah,
because obviously I was part of the English fans that went, and I'll say Murray from I say from Social Street Place. He's in the Discord. He's basically part of the crew. I guess is that he counts as English well flying. But like I was, if London trains were kinder to Nottingham, and I didn't have to leave after Chris Jericho with Ospreay, I was meant to meet up with Jeremy, with Floyd, Fenichel. Just like the Americans had come over for this show. And I feel like that's a huge reason why they got close to that number. Like it wasn't just the UK fans turning up for it or the European fans. The American fans flew over as well for this huge event. And that's the part they're going to struggle to get from like this point on, especially in the current climate. But it feels like it's still massive. Like the number of people they got for the second All In. And this third one is already starting to tickle towards 40,000, which is half the capacity of Wembley, but it's still really impressive to get to that number when apparently there's a monopoly. Like, well, how are they selling about 40,000 regularly for their biggest show of the year?
Yeah, how many non-WWE shows have sold 40,000 tickets? There's it's a handful. Like there's not many. Particularly when you're talking Western wrestling. Like, of course, there's a number of Japanese ones that have done so in the Tokyo Dome, actually legit sold 40,000 tickets in the Tokyo Dome, even less than the numbers would suggest. Although one happened earlier this year with Hiroshi Tanahashi. But going back to like All In, the 10,000 seater one, 2018, like it's a huge success, like extremely important historically what they did. And the success of AEW has almost sort of normalized it in that, like, well, of course they did the 10,000 seats. Like it's, it's now like just given that most AEW pay-per-views will sell 10,000 tickets. And it's that $10,000 seater mark is, it's almost been normalized by the fact that AEW exists now, and it's become something that happens so regularly, which, is a testament to the hunger that there was for this kind of wrestling, and also the market that there was, and also just the skill of these wrestlers and the corporate backing of Tony Khan as well, I guess.
So yeah, I feel like the absolute biggest thing that this proved was there was room for that alternative, for that different way of telling stories. And the bigger proof of concept that came from it for me was that Hangman arc, just a way more adult way of telling a story. And that meant so much in terms of AEW going forward. Well, this is the kind of story we can tell. And to be fair, look at the Will Ospreay story they're doing now. Like I said on my show, that there's absolutely no way you could get anywhere near this level of story with this level of well-written characters in WWE, from Moxley to Ospreay to Omega. Like there's just so much to it. And it all starts from this little proof of concept that they were doing all the way back here in the BTE stuff with the Bullet Club is Fine. Like all the DNA for it is there, even if the All In show is very representative of what indie wrestling was like in this time period. Like you said it's like a super indie show. And Forbidden Door, in a way, could be that mixed in with the AEW professionalism. But it's so representative of that, whilst the AEW DNA is more in the BTE stuff than it is in the actual All In show, but you can see it. It's just that really helped with that groundswell, just because I'd say WWE in a similar boat now, where they're still kind of talking down to their audience and dumbing down their show, and AEW still feels like the more adult show because of it. Yes, they do silly bollocks. I'm not saying it's perfect. I'm not saying it's not silly at times. But it's the way they present their stories. And for me, that's great to have an alternative. Because if you're somebody who, likes to be talked down to when you're watching your TV shows or whatever, there are those people. Look how popular The Rookie is. Like, that's a nothing show with Nathan Fillion. Absolutely nothing cut procedural, the most watched thing on Netflix. So, there are those people. And WWE, that's for you. To be an alternative. Like, there's room for The Rookie. There is also room for House of the Dragon. Like, two very different levels of telling a character or whatever. And for me, that's where AEW falls in. That it's so good to have an alternative, because of course, me and you, we grew up in a world where there wasn't an alternative. It was WWE or try your luck elsewhere, pal. Like it was. It kind of sucks. And obviously, as a fan, it's great to know that the wrestlers do have that bargaining chip as well, and they're doing better off because of the competition.
100%, 100%. And it's worth noting as well that, like, for all of the success they've had in ring, whenever they've been interviewed about it, the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega in particular have said the thing that they're proudest of and the thing that they hope their legacy will be improving the wrestling economy and the effect that they've been able to have on the market generally, and how much better things are for wrestlers because AEW exists. And that it can't be worth stating that, like, with getting to that came tremendous risk. Like, as I said, like, the success of AEW has normalized how successful All In was, but it really was a huge bet on themselves. And even going to AEW was a huge bet on themselves that could have completely blown up in their face. You know, if they didn't get a TV deal with Warner, if for whatever reason it just doesn't come together, and 18 months in, AEW folds and closes up, they're then, you know, going back to their previous promotions with the stink of a failed promotion on them. And, you know, I don't know what the possibility of that was, given how rich Tony Khan is, because it's very easy for people who just have normal amounts of money to underestimate how friggin' huge $1 billion is. Like, I deal with people in my work who've sometimes got like maybe $10 million, and that feels like a lot. But if you Google, you can Google a video that shows and visualizes how much bigger $1 billion is to $1 million. And it really, our brains aren't made to compute how rich these people are and how much resources they have at their disposal. So I don't know how unlikely it was that this would be a complete failure, but it wasn't nothing. And it definitely could have had lots of money behind it and not caught on the way that it did. And if that had happened, then these guys all go into their next phase of their career, their peak years really, without that bargaining chip and having spoken a lot of trash and it not panned out. So it was a huge gamble coming into All In to try and fill that 10,000 seats. And it was a huge gamble that they took in going with AEW and deciding that that's where they wanted to ply their trade and that's where they wanted to risk it all. But it has paid off, and it has meant that the wrestling industry as a whole, whether you're a fan of AEW or not, is a better place for it.
And the final thanks has to actually go to WWE, not just because they
for being so crap.
Yeah, for being so crap and making people desperate for something else, but also apparently it's from Dave Meltzer that because WWE's TV deal got so big, suddenly people were like, "Oh, there seems to be quite a lot of money in this wrestling thing." Suddenly, different places were looking about wrestling, and that's exactly when All In was happening, because we'll talk about the Fox deal. Like, it's around that time. So suddenly that massively helped AEW get a very good deal.
And I should note, because we have been slagging on AEW, WWE, we've been absolutely hammering them from pillar to post this episode.
This era deserves it.
Yeah, but it was noted that both Vince McMahon and Triple H wished these guys luck when they went to this. So Cody Rhodes spoke to Vince about this show. He wished him luck. Apparently Triple H messaged the Young Bucks a really warm and nice message on the day of, hoping that it goes well. So it has to be noted, you know, as much as they later, you know, a couple of months later would then go to war with them, at this point, before All In, they saw that this was like actually something that was exciting and hoped that they were successful, wish them well with it. So it's worth noting that. And they didn't counter program it either, which is another thing that they could have done, and they chose not to and would later choose to do. So, but yeah, look, as I said, it's impossible to tell the story of AEW without looking into All In. And I really wanted to dig deep on this one. And I'm glad you were here to do it with me, Imp. It's been fun to look back on. It's eye-opening to look back on as well. I was surprised at some things when I watched it. I wasn't, it wasn't the show that I remembered it being. I'm not going to say if it was better or worse. Like, it just wasn't. It was different to how I remembered it. But I'm glad we went back and rewatched it, and I'm glad we've done this mammoth episode. I've no doubt this is my longest episode with you, not just with you, with anyone, because we're looking at a whole card and the history and the build up of the industry for 20 years before it happened. So we've covered a bit of ground today. Is there anything final you'd like to say about All In before we finalize things here?
I mean, we've pretty much beat it from every angle. The All In Pinata is very much emptied at this point. It's probably gone. But yeah, I feel like we did what we could to try and explain the situation in which it happened, the environment, the atmosphere for it all, the build up to it, why there was that excitement, and then why it's such a well-regarded show in terms of, and then it's obviously its influence onto AEW. But I feel like it's going to be going down as such an important show in the history of professional wrestling. When the history about wrestling is talked about in 10, 20 years, it's going to be such a fundamentally important event because it does change professional wrestling. It's a monopoly of WWE. People are leaving. All In happens, massively reinvigorates them. And you look at the state of wrestling 8 years later, and AEW is very firmly established as a number 2 brand to a point where loads of people have started watching wrestling, and that's just what wrestling is to them. Like, to the newer wrestling fan, there are just 2 companies again. And to think that they don't have to live through that era of it just being WWE, and it's not good, and there's no alternative. So it was it's for what that's done. I talked about the wrestlers themselves, but in terms of the fans, to actually give them a choice, like, yes, there is the tribalism, but there is a thing to slag off. Like, there is an opposition. The fact there is good. The fact that it is choice, and they do it differently, very differently. Just in terms of like presentation, the wrestling, the way they tell the stories, the company's politics, everything. Like, the 2 are almost polar opposites, even though they're both wrestling. They present themselves so differently. And that's just good for wrestling to have such a choice. And the fact that AEW is such high quality. And I think that's the thing when you watch this All In show. The thing that is definitely not quite there when you compare it to the AEW of today, the level of quality of wrestling in AEW right now is so astronomically high that you watch this All In show and go, oh yeah, this is a super indie show. Like, it's silly. It's got fun little gimmicks. Everyone's having a party. It feels closer to a PWG party show in like full of 10,000 people than it does us showcasing the best wrestling in the world. Because that's what New Japan were doing in this period. So yeah, I've rabbited on, but I would say that my positive feeling towards AEW still exists. Obviously, it wavered a little bit in the post-punk era. There was a little bit of finding their feet again. But I feel like going back to their roots and just remembering what were we trying to achieve with All In was quite important to AEW finding their identity. And it is responsible for changing the landscape of professional wrestling. There's no underselling it.
100%. You said we've hit a All In from all angles, but I have a special treat for everyone listening because when this was all happening, I have some good friends from a podcast that isn't functioning anymore. They don't put out episodes anymore. It's called Watch Great Wrestling. It was formerly called This Is Awesome until the WWE freaking stole their title from them. But they used to do a very similar podcast to what I do now, which is reviewing matches. But in the lead up to All In, they actually went through all of the Being the Elite episodes and did a summary of them. They actually got retweeted by the Young Bucks at the time. So they are the first AEW podcast. They are the AEW podcast before AEW existed. And I sent out an email to them and I said, hey, I'm covering All In. I know you guys did a massive build up to it. And I know that you guys were there in the room on the night. And would you be able to just give me a couple of minutes? And the buggers went and they gave me about 20 minutes. They've done like their own little show review. So make sure you stick around because that is a really, really good little summary from people who were there in the ring, not in the ring, God, not in the ring, in the arena that night. And were also in sort of the California wrestling bubble. So they were like going to the PWG shows. They went to the Lucha Underground shows and that sort of thing. So they've got a really cool perspective. So make sure you stick around from that. That's the guys from the Watch Great Wrestling podcast. But before you go, a couple of things I just quickly want to plug before we get out of here. I am doing a fun run on the 30th of October, 10-kilometer fun run. I'm training up to it. If you ask me, I'll give you my Strava details and you can keep me accountable to it. But it's to raise money for cancer. Cancer is something that has touched my family multiple times. I've had multiple family members who've dealt with it. And so I'm really passionate about raising some money for it. And through the charity Can for Cancer, I'm doing a 10-kilometer run. There'll be a link in the description if you'd like to check that out. If you can donate, my heart would be so thankful to you if you can. So if you can, click that link and donate. If not, come in there and just cheer me on. I'm training up to this 10-kilometer run. I want to try and be able to do it under 1 hour. The moment I'm pushing to do 5Ks at 30 minutes. So I've got some training to do. I've got some work to do, but it's not till the 30th of October, so I've got time. But yeah, look, I just want to plug that. You'll be hearing more about it if you keep listening to my show. But yeah, look, click that link if you can. My heart would be so appreciative if you could. As well, if you want to discuss the show, come into the Discord. Let me know what your memories of All In are, what your memories of the movement that kind of coalesced in All In are. If you got a chance to rewatch the show, I'd be really curious to hear your thoughts on it, particularly if you are one of the people who came to AEW after AEW started and you never watched All In and this is the first time you've seen it. I'd be really curious to hear what you think of it, given how it's kind of the pilot, but it also is very different to what AEW is these days. So I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on it. Next week, sorry, not next week, in 2 weeks' time, next episode, I am doing back to the grind, back to a single match, back to the normal format. We've got Bryan Danielson versus Nigel McGuinness versus Tyler Black versus Claudio Castagnolo. Death Before Dishonor from 2008. It's old school ROH. So definitely a program and a promotion that you can draw a straight line from and to AEW, that 2000s ROH, Ring of Honor. And there'll be lots of discussion on that around Ring of Honor generally, and also the position that Ring of Honor sort of has come to operate under Tony Khan as well. Imp, before we get to the boys from Watch Great Wrestling, and this is awesome, is there anything that you would like to plug?
My own show here on the Social Suplex Podcast Network, Imp's AEW Adventure, where every single week I'll talk about Dynamite and Collision in a heavily edited format where, just like this, I'll just have a little jabber by myself at a wall, and then I'll trim it down to make it sound like I know what I'm talking about. Like that stutter just then where I've beaten my sentence. That wouldn't be in my show. That would be gone. That would have been smooth. Nothing wrong with it at all. But yes, that comes out every Monday. So me and Sam are Monday brothers. Because they're both on the same day. Well, yeah, it comes out like a little 30-minute thing talking about the AEW week that was. You can follow me on Blue Sky. I mostly just repost Social Suplex stuff, like almost like a Social Suplex feed, because I'm not really posting on social media anymore. I'm more just like a browser. Twitter conditioned me to not engage, and then I went to a different platform and have not really started engaging now. But yeah, all that stuff is there. And also check out all the other shows here on the Social Suplex Podcast Network, because we're in a very good place and killing it at the moment.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Kicking so many goals. It's good. It's a good place to be. It's a good place to be. Thank you, Imp. Really appreciate it. Thanks in advance to Joaquin, Chuck, and Frank from Watch Great Wrestling. Make sure you stick around and check those guys out. But for me and from Imp, thanks so much for listening, and I will see you in 2 weeks' time. Bye.
Oh yeah, I have our intro.
Do it. Well, let's say hi to Sam first.
Yeah.
Hi, Sam.
Hi, Sam.
Hi, Sam.
We're doing the Shield fist bump for you.
Yes. Thank you for asking us to do this. We really appreciate it. It's actually been a nice excuse for the three of us to get into a room like this which we haven't done in like
A while.
3 years.
Yeah, it's been a minute.
You got the band back together. So,
Yeah.
We also were watching Redemption today.
I almost said Revolution again.
Yeah.
Damn it.
Yeah. So you feel free to cut any of our bullshit.
Yes.
Or
all of it. I don't know.
Yeah. Whatever is useful for you. But I thought it'd be fun if we did it this way. We do a little intro.
Okay.
Welcome to This Is Awesome, a Muscle Temple podcast. The only podcast that asks the question, what makes a great wrestling match and why?
And then those bastards stole our goddamn name.
And yeah, we had to change our name to Watch Great Wrestling.
Yes.
But we were also watching The Elite.
That's true.
Yeah, we were also watching
This is why we're here.
The original, very first, we proved this. We were the very first, technically, AEW podcast.
That's right.
And we were the first AEW vidcast for a minute.
That's right.
That's true.
Chuck and I were doing the post show in this very room.
There you go.
Yeah.
And we were endorsed by one of the Jacksons or their social media manager. Maybe
They took it down.
They took it down. But you know what? I've got a very low grade PNG somewhere. So there you go. That we appreciate Sam having us on the show. This is Joaquin Poblete.
This is Charlie and Tosca.
And this is Frank Gibson, unprepared as always.
Yes.
Oh, no, that's not true. We're all unprepared this time. We're talking about All In.
Yeah, so we went to it. Chuck didn't.
I did not know.
Yeah,
It's my 31st birthday.
It was a tough time. It was we're doing better now.
That's right. We're all doing great.
But in the lead up to the event, we decided to watch all of the Elite.
Binged it.
Yeah, binged the whole thing, and we did like a podcast about it. And it was super fun because we were very excited for All In. And why were we excited for All In? Because we loved independent wrestling. Still love independent wrestling. But a lot of the people involved in All In were guys that we would see around Southern California indies like Pro Wrestling Guerrilla. And we were excited to see it felt like our boys were all growing up.
It did.
To me, that's the thing that like kind of is what I remember the most about it. It felt like not a graduation, but it like they were taking a step in a new direction.
Yes.
This felt like and it turned out to be a huge hinge point for pro wrestling as a whole.
I was excited to see Joey Janela. Joey Ryan,
Joey
Marty Skrull,
Nick
Gordon, my favorite wrestlers. Please edit out the part where my first part of the bit I said the wrong person, but
yes,
all our canceled wrestlers. No,
rightfully canceled too.
Rightfully canceled. But I think
Flip Gordon thinks fires aren't real.
Look, maps are hard.
Yeah, prove something to me. But for me, I was looking back at the card today, and I realized, and it's funny because I just watched Forbidden Door.
Yes.
Going into today to Redemption. That's a lot to cut out. But the point is, I recently watched Forbidden Door, and it's this regular, it almost, we take it for granted now that all these styles are melding together in one place. And to remember back in 2018, we didn't have that.
No, you didn't get to have Kazuchika Okada wrestling in the United States.
No.
Right.
Period.
Yeah.
It was a really exciting time. And like, I know just from like watching these guys for so long, I wanted to participate in their success.
Oh, we were full parasocial. Like,
Wow, that's 100%.
Yeah.
Hey, what? Hey, remember when we got one of the Jacksons to super kick someone for money?
That's right. We did get
for charity.
For charity. Charity. But I think that the other part of this, looking back, and I think that you're actually remembering it the way you should remember it, which is like the way we lived it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I'm doing the opposite, where it's like I'm like, wait, what did this mean?
Oh, of course you are.
Right.
Yes.
And it's like, I almost feel like it was like session 0 of a D&D campaign.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Issue 0 of like a comic book reboot.
Mm-hmm.
It was like
a battle royale booked by Bully Ray.
Right, exactly. All of these,
it was really good.
All of these jokes we're making, though, this All In 2018 is not necessarily AEW.
No, I don't. Yeah, I mean, there's the DNA is there, but that's mostly just because some of the players, right, are the same.
Tony's touch isn't there.
What 100%? Yeah, but yeah, this was it and remains its own thing. That almost has more in common with like old Ring of Honor and TNA even.
Sure.
Than modern AEW.
Sure. Outlaw wrestling.
Totally, yeah. But for me, I think also the thing that I remember was just like how it really represented what we weren't getting from WWE in 2018. And this is for the same reason why New Japan was so popular,
right?
At least in the United States, was because they were giving us something we weren't getting from that company as well, which is almost a bummer now that AEW has kind of filled that gap, and so I think a lot of people are watching less of that stuff.
Right? Yeah, but New Japan will ride.
They'll be fine. Yes,
it's just like I think New Japan throughout its entire history has kind of had like that like ebb and flow to it.
Totally.
but we thought it might be fun just to like run through like the match card.
Sure.
And just like talk about our memories of it. We're already past our 2 minutes.
You know what,
sorry,
Sam? Use what you want to use. We'll give you a nice clean outro at the end too. So,
yeah. So we had forgotten there was a pre-show, number one.
I'm blown away by this. I have no memory of this whatsoever.
Which was SoCal Uncensored, Frank Kazarian, Scorpio Sky defeating the Briscoe brothers, which at the time that feels like kind of like a big deal as well.
Yeah.
Because SoCal Uncensored were, generally popular on the Southern California Indies and on being the elite.
That's right.
That's
their gimmick got over huge because of being the elite. They're like the poster child of like a gimmick that kind of was created whole cloth, I felt like, via that YouTube series.
Sure. I don't remember much about this match because I was with Dario looking to get t-shirts, but as then and now, not great with having a lot of merch.
AEW, you gotta work on your t-shirt game at the shows. Outside the shows, it's fine.
Yeah.
So there was a battle royale. So this is part of the thing that we actually do remember. And yes, it was booked by Bully Ray. We tweeted about this at the time, back when it was called Twitter. And,
before we got blocked by Bully.
Yeah. And Road Dog.
Yeah.
But
stop cyberbullying.
Yeah. Sorry. I got blocked by Dave Meltzer with our account too.
All right, I have a direct line these days.
But so there was this battle.
He's like, please stop tweeting at me.
Sorry. Fuck. Oh god. There was this battle royale, which was basically the way, because Flip Gordon wasn't on the show, and that was the storyline of being the elite. And so
he's not booked.
Yeah, he wasn't booked. So Flip Gordon had the mask on, and he wins the battle royale by defeating Bully Ray. And the battle royale was very fun. I forget who was in it. It's not listed here. There were a lot.
Sunny Kiss.
Yeah.
Yes. And the winner would end up getting, was it the Ring of Honor Championship match, right?
Yes. Later in the show.
Okay. Yeah.
Matt Cross defeating MJF, which was the opening match of the card.
Yes.
This may have been one of the first times I saw MJF wrestle at a Chicago indie.
I think I had seen
AEW.
Was the viral clip, or the clip had already gone viral of him playing catch with Colt Cabana. That's I think the first time I saw MJF.
And they had that great story. Well, it wasn't so much a story as like a bit in GCW, where he had a feud with Spider Nate Webb over his hatred of the Teenage Dirtbag song.
Dude, you showed me that. That was like, that cracked me up.
It was a really good bit of business. But yeah, Matt Cross, son of Havoc from Lucha Underground, defeats MJF.
Which is insane when you think about it.
Yeah. Just
9 minutes, too. You know they want some of that time back.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So, like,
We'll
of course, the show went long. Like we're going long right now, too. Christopher Daniels defeats Stephen Amell from...
Which, at the time, was one of the better celebrity matches until we invented Bad Bunny.
Yeah,
that's right.
Dude. Who's the best celebrity wrestler.
Yes.
Yeah, the Arrowverse doesn't quite compare to the rest of the world.
Yeah, Pat McAfee had one really good match with Adam Cole, and it turned out that it's just Adam Cole's a very good wrestler.
Turns out.
Who knew?
Tessa Blanchard.
One of my favorites.
Oh, God.
One of my favorites.
Man.
God,
Joey Ryan, Tessa Blanchard, Marty Squirrel.
You're
Problematic fans.
Where's David Starr?
Oh, God.
Where's David Starr when you need him?
Just listening to all the canceled horrible people.
I had to give so many t-shirts away to Goodwill.
Mm.
My Drake Younger shirt.
Yeah.
Where it's him as Doug.
Yeah.
Disney.
Very cute. Very cute.
Yeah.
Not from Nickelodeon's Doug, from Disney's Doug.
Yeah, Disney.
I will just, one thing I'll say about this match, it makes me miss Hot Mess Chelsea Green so much. That was such a good gimmick.
Her gimmick is awesome.
I mean, she's still kind of doing a version of that now, but
yeah, I'm very glad for her success.
100%.
Yeah. Cody, because he didn't have the name.
That's right.
But Brandy did, so they could say Cody and Brandy Rhodes.
That's right.
Yeah, this was Justin was the ring announcer for this.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah. This was the match where Cody pulled off a miracle and managed to make people care about the NWA World Heavyweight Championship for about 6 months.
Well, that's George Hackett's belt.
Yeah, and it was like your kind of because Cody with Brandy Rhodes, Diamond Dallas Page, Glacier, Tommy Dreamer.
Yeah, it was the Nightmare Family came out.
So I'll say this. This was the first Codyverse match.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I love. This is my favorite match from that card.
Really.
It's the Codyverse match.
I really like Hangman and Janela.
I was gonna say I know it's not. It's kind of
a bunch of dicks,
but
Oh yeah,
It's
the end of
fantastic.
it. The end of
The match is fantastic.
Yeah, the end of it.
Look, we
Also-
did it. It was 2018. It was a different time. We didn't think the dick thing was bad.
No.
We should have.
We
Yeah,
should.
but we didn't.
We should have had a clue. I have been I've talked about this match every single time we get to talk about it. Every time we talk about Joey Janela on our show.
Yes.
I was just like, the way Joey Janela was presented with like the Kavinsky song and Justin Roberts' intro with Penelope Ford with him, I was like, this guy is a fucking star.
Yes.
And he is, but now he is a star of indie wrestling once more, which maybe was where
The right place to be.
where he wanted to be. Ultimately.
This is kind of an aside. We talked about this a number of times on the show, as you said, but man, there was just something about Joey that he plays best in a small room. And that's not a judgment of him at all. It's just, it works better in front of 3,000 people instead of 10,000 people.
Right,
I don't know why.
Yeah.
It's
Because you have to change your style. You have to become Imagine Dragons.
Or
Imagine, dragons. Yeah.
I mean, just imagine them though. But like, yeah, his whole bit in this was fantastic, and I thought he played very well to this crowd because it was like a fucking crazy like hardcore match.
Yes.
So it's like
This had the Cracker Barrel.
Yeah, oh, there's a Cracker Barrel.
Yes.
Okay. Next match. So Jay Lethal, who gets Macho Man's robe from Lanny Poffo.
Correct.
And does the Black Machismo gimmick.
Mhm.
And defeats Flip Gordon for extra humiliation points for Flip Gordon.
As he should have.
Oh,
yeah,
sure.
as it turns out, as he should have. Kenny and Penta. I mean, it's probably
the best match.
It's probably the actual best match.
This is my favorite match on the card.
Yeah, I love Hangman and Joey. This one was fantastic. It was just seeing those worlds collide as well, where it's just like, we've been watching Lucha Underground. Pentagon wasn't really wrestling in the United States, outside of like the Indies. It was very exciting. And this is the match where everything goes wrong. Kazuchika Okada and Marty Scurll.
I thought they should have given this 10 more minutes.
If they did, the main event would literally be under 2 minutes long.
Not even joking. We're looking at the match listing, and it also lists the times. I would have, if you put a gun to my head, I would have said this match was 40 minutes long. It's 26 minutes and 5 seconds. That's not right.
It feels its length.
Yes. Okada was not in any hurry.
Yeah. And it was also, he was in Balloon Okada.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
That's right.
Pants
oh
Okada.
my God.
Yeah, he was Pants Okada, and he still beat Marty Scurll. And also took up, of course, and I bet you're going to be talking about this on your show, Sam, but it's like, he took all the time of the card.
Did.
He sure did.
Yeah, so like when the main event rolls around, the intros were really long, and we're like, what's going on?
Yeah.
And it was because they were rewriting their match in Gorilla before they came
That's
out, so they could get all their shit in 11 minutes. And that match is a fever dream. It's insane.
Yes.
I will actually say, I've watched this since. It was more insane in person. It was like watching a speed run
Yes.
Yeah.
of a video game.
Which
is incredibly impressive, actually. I don't remember being disappointed at all, in a way.
I wasn't
being there
disappointed.
live. I just remember thinking, okay, they're gonna have to get a move on.
Well, were you aware? Were you guys aware of the time constraints, or
No.
were you?
No, I was not aware.
Okay, so I have also gone back and watched the match, and I enjoyed it so much more the second and third time I've seen it. All I could think about watching the main event as it was happening was how little time they had. It was like it was like watching Uncut Gems. It stressed me out.
Stress you
I
out.
was like, oh my God, like we gotta.
It's like watching The Bear.
Yeah, and you kind of you don't want these guys to fail, like you know what I
Yeah.
mean. So it's like that sort of took me out of the match ultimately. But yeah, looking back on it, it's a fantastic sprint.
It's a great regret in the sense that who knows if they had had a longer, better match, if Ray would have been more invested in maybe not going to WWE again.
Sure.
Or,
Yeah,
it's a great historical what if.
Because he was already on his way back, right?
Yes,
But he
Ish.
committed to this.
Yes.
And it was awesome that he did it because it's
and he's in his
like,
cool little Wolverine outfit.
Yeah.
Little Wolverine.
Yeah.
That's Earth negative 55.
Okay.
not a Swolverine.
That's right.
Brian Cage.
Negative 619. What am I saying?
He's shockingly absent in this card. I was wondering why
Yeah,
he's
he's
not
like
here.
it's like one of the
I think he was
guys.
in the battle.
Oh, was he in the
Oh,
battle?
yeah,
Yeah.
But I mean, live thoughts.
The over budget battle royale. I forgot about
That's
that.
right.
Yes.
It felt. I hate to say this. I'm gonna look like a jerk on the internet, but what else is new?
Too late.
It really, looking back, it did feel like I saw Radiohead in
Yes.
Yeah.
a small club.
we've been watching them in the small club, and it's like you saw their first arena show.
Sure.
Like it's like you got to see them come up with, like, and then you got to like, this almost felt like the culmination of something. And it turns out this wasn't the culmination.
Right.
AEW
It was the beginning.
Well, the important thing was Tony had the experience we did, and he's got a little more capital.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we forgot to mention Jericho. He's there.
Oh yeah, he showed up.
That's right. He comes out.
Hexagon gear.
He showed up.
Yes. To set up the New Japan.
That's right.
Match. Yeah. Which is also in concert with this show is kind of the genesis of McGillicuddy. AEW.
There you go.
Like, yeah, so you've got like your ROH, you've got your New Japan, you've got your indies, and it was a really special time. And I'm glad I went to it. I'm glad that they didn't know how much a suite should cost, so we paid,
That's right.
We paid very little to get a suite at this thing because that shit was sold out.
You want suite for what now?
I'll say this.
At the Now Arena, but it wasn't called that.
The Now it wasn't. It was something else.
Yeah.
But I also we got a party bus. But
I
remember thinking
we're so stupid.
We were quite
no wonder we
dumb.
don't have any fucking money.
That's right. Still renting. I think for me, it was such an important event. Personally, it was my birthday, but also I remember I was actually sick going into this, and I was like, I can't miss it. So as soon as I flew into Chicago, I got an IV.
That's right.
I got an IV while I watched John McCain's funeral for all your listeners. But
Oh my God.
It was on C-SPAN. But it's so funny because at the time I do remember thinking.
Remember when John McCain did the Batista thumbs up?
That's right.
Classic.
But then they turned on him.
Yeah.
It was a show. But it was important to us at the time, and I'll say I'm not the great prognosticator. I'm not you, Chuck. And I think at the time I was like, this is going to be great. I'm going to have a good time. My expectations were, this is going to be a synthesis of this thing I already love.
Yeah.
But I couldn't have imagined AEW.
No.
I mean, we're very, very fortunate as wrestling fans right now. So fortunate we should probably do a podcast about it. But you know what makes it really easier is if we don't research anything.
And we just
then we send it to Sam.
We just start talking.
So there you go. Sam, hire us. But
we work cheap.
We work cheap. But it was, I don't know. Valedictory thoughts. I don't know if I have any. It was fun.
Yeah. It was a very special time for wrestling, a very special time for us in our love of professional wrestling.
Yeah.
Us kind of moving away from WWE to something that is a lot more interesting. And I feel less icky watching.
Yeah. Oh, and that's what I love. I think that's the germ of what is still in AEW that I love so much, is that it does still surprise me.
Yes.
And, it's not like the same slog of 6 hours of WWE content.
Here we go.
No, not to be a hater, but it was, I came in with the expectation that I would be delighted, and I still am, and I think that's what you take from All In into AEW.
What I take is that Tony Khan saw this card and he's like, this could be twice as long.
It needs to be. Right out of time.
All right. We should
wrap it up before Joaquin starts getting his Tony Khan voice.
Also, he does like a Statler and Waldorf. But also, please edit some of this out.
Sure.
We spoke so much. We will not be offended if you take.
We're just having a good time. Please take 30 seconds from this set. We appreciate you asking us.
Yeah, it's been fun doing this, and if you ever need us back, you know where to find us, which is in the email that Chuck checks there.
There you go.
Thanks for listening to the AEW Match Guide podcast. If you enjoyed the show, then you can subscribe on the podcast app of your choice so you never miss an episode. Also, feel free to let me know on Twitter at Sir_Samuel. I'd love to hear from you. The AEW Match Guide podcast is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network, where you can find many other fantastic podcasts discussing not just AEW, but all parts of the world of professional wrestling. Looking forward to seeing you again next week. I'm Sam Brown.